All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. I'm your host, as always, Mike. And today, for UFC 280, a banger of a card, we've got a banger of a show. I brought the best guys I could think of, and we're about to break down this card from top to bottom and give you guys our best bets. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce guys who probably don't need much introduction, but we got Uncle Wheezy, Wiz Bets, Liam from Liam Picks Fight, and Pat from Addicted to Combat. What up, boys? Real quick, we'll just pass the mic to each one of you. You guys can do a quick intro. Let everybody know how you feel about this banger of a card. If you don't like the card and you're not excited for it, just please leave. You're no longer welcome on the panel. And why don't we start with Wheezy?
Yeah, I was going to say is an okay card, but we're here anyway, right? I'm fired up for this. To see undercard fights like Borralho, Muradov, Makhmud, Brady, Krylov, Oezdemir. This is craziness. Can't wait to see some of these prospects that are about to go at it. A lot of lines. I've had as much money on this card as I've had like the last four combined. There's just a lot of spots that are sticking out. I can't wait to chop it up.
How about you, Wiz?
I'm fired up. I'm ready to go.
I could tell by the glasses.
Really excited for this card. Ready to break it down with you guys. And what a panel. Look at you guys. The best of the best. Let's do this.
Look at us. Look at us. Liam, how about you, brother?
Yeah, I'm excited to be on with you guys. Bunch of great gentlemen, a bunch of great personalities. Man, I'm excited to talk about these fights. I think, top to bottom, it's a good UFC card. A lot of these UFC cards, you could mistake half the fights for LFA or some other regional show. Dana White Contender Series is starting to creep onto your Saturday night product a little bit more each week. But, hey, I think this is a real UFC card. It's going to be a lot of, violent finishers and a lot of great action. So I'm excited to talk about it.
And last but certainly not least, we've got Cyril Gane's younger brother, Pat. What's up, brother? How about you, man?
What's going on? And I love that meme you posted about me and Cyril Gane. Like, corporate needs you to find the difference between these two pictures. They're the same picture. That was classic. But I'm excited for UFC 280, of course. But what I like about this card, not only the gambling perspective and opportunities we have, but I love when people are just like all in on one side and they cannot be moved, like Oliveira and Mokaev. Like, you're either on one side strongly or you're just not on it at all. It's great. I love people planting their flag and sticking to their guns on a lot of these fights. I'm ready to break into it.
I cannot wait to see what side you guys are all on for the main event. I tried to stay off of all your content. I normally watch all you guys, but I tried to stay off. I'm hyped to see what you guys all think. But let's get into it. So for the very first fight of the night, we've got Lina Lansberg versus Karol Rosa. Lina Lansberg, 10-6-0. She's 40 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach, and she's training out of Redline TC. On the other side, I've got Karol Rosa, 15-4-0, 27 years old, 5'5". She's 2 inches shorter, 68-inch reach. She's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and she's training out of PRVT. So, Wheezy, why don't you start us off, man?
Yeah, I'm not doing much with this fight. I do like that the fight goes to decision, but I think the over 2.5 is juiced up to minus 275. So those aren't plays that I make. I think Rosa wins this fight, but I have retired from laying juice on women's MMA unless it's just absolutely screaming at me like the cat is right now to do it. And this is not one of those spots. So, but my favorite bets here are if you're looking to parlay some overs here, over 2.5 at minus 275 is a decent parlay piece. I think Rosa by decision at minus 125, probably the way to go if you're looking to get a cheaper price on Karol. She hasn't finished any of her UFC wins, and neither has Lina Lansberg. So probably goes to decision, but for me, I'm just going to be staying away.
Makes sense to me. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, so Lina Lansberg in her last fight really impressed me in the first round, but after that, she kind of fell apart cardio-wise against Pani, and I was on the Pani side that day. First round really scared me. She was able to clinch up and land those elbows in the clinch, which she's really good at. That's the staple of her game. But to be honest, Karol Rosa has been a money machine for me over the past 5 fights, except for the last fight, obviously. And I think she goes back to her winning ways here. And I actually expect Karol to finish her. and I'm predicting a second round finish, taking her down and just ground and pound.
I've got a similar read I'll talk about when it's my turn, but Liam, how about you, man?
Yeah, man, I had the great misfortune of watching Karol Rosa's last competition in person. A horrendous fight, having to scream at your fighter that's not going to cash you your ticket. Please, Karol, throw the elbows. It hurts worse in person, I can tell you. But what I came away with on this fight is I have a common theme with these two ladies, which is that I just donate on the inside the distance props in their fights, right? I bet on Pannie Kianzad inside the distance in that last bout. And in addition, I bet on Karol Rosa inside the distance against Bechkohea, and I bet on her inside the distance in her most recent outing that she did not even win the bout. So for me, I'm just going to pass on this fight in all likelihood, although this is probably, just as the cruel nature of this business, the fight where Karol Rosa gets the finish and it's a nice juicy number and I just lay off it because I'm scarred by the past. But, I think that one of the keys to my gambling success has also just been a willingness to bite the bullet and continue to trend bet something if I really feel strongly about it, even if it doesn't come through, because you only have to hit it once to pay for all those other bets that you lost at this stage at that near 3-1 tag. So I'll do some more investigating, but the number one indicator for me is just the huge age gap. But Karol Rosa, I just want to see more intensity, more aggression. It's almost something I'd rather live bet, when it's plus 350 after round one. If I see her like really, looking aggressive and going for a finish here, because I think that's what it's going to take. She's really not shown that level of aggression in her past fights. But I think she's going to win the fight pretty easily. I mean, it's kind of a setup fight. One lady's on the way out. God bless her. Have a good rest of your career. Good luck in your future endeavors.
All right. And Pat, how about you, brother?
Yeah, I'm on the Karol Rosa side. I don't have any bets on this fight. I mean, you could look Rosa by decision, chops the money line down quite a bit, down to like minus 125, minus 130. But even that, it's like, like these guys have mentioned, I mean, there is that chance when you start approaching 40 years old, 41, like Lina Lansberg, like when are they going to throw it in the towel? When are they going to quit? And we saw that against Bechkohea and Lina Lansberg's, her previous fight before the loss. She was eating up in the clinch, like elbows and knees and like grabbing the single and double collar ties, getting a lot of clinch work in. And Bechkohea was kind of, the referee was looking at that fight like, is she going to defend any of these strikes? Is she going to wilt into the pressure? That could happen against Lina Lansberg. The finish is live, not something I can rely on, but I also can't rely on the overs in this fight either. So it's a pass for me, but definitely Karol Rosa. A spot where Lina Lansberg used to dominate was on the clinch, like bullying on the cage. Now you see all of her fights, she's starting to like get dominated herself in those spots. So not much to like from Lina Lansberg. I'm starting to see that decline, and I like Rosa in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on Rosa, and it's no surprise she's currently sitting at like minus 330 or something like that. I share Wiz's thoughts. I think it's going to be pretty dominant here. I think that Karol Rosa is live for a finish. I think that she's got this crazy output, literally pretty much every single fight except the Jocelyn Edwards fight, where she was fighting a much taller fighter and she chose to wrestle, and against Sarah McMahon, who completely outgrappled her. I've had a pretty good read on Rosa. I faded her against Sarah McMahon. That turned out well. And I just feel like here she's got everything she needs to win dominantly, and maybe even get a finish. What I'm thinking is a late finish. I'm thinking ground and pound TKO. So I have her parlayed the hell up. I'll be talking about it all card. These Abu Dhabi Habib centered cards, I often parlay the fuck out of them because we have these heavy favorites all around. And, it goes okay for me, knock on wood. So hopefully this does too. I've got like 5.5 units staked on Rosa. So it's quite a bit on a big, heavy WMMA favorite. Not a good thing, not comfortable, but it's all right. I like it. And I played the KO at plus 550 for 0.2 units. And I played the round 3 finish. I think it was just a finish. Oh, 1 sec. I'm going to check. No, I played the round 3 TKO plus 2,400 for 0.1 unit to win 2.4. And yeah, that's what I'm doing for this fight. And we can move on to our next one. So, all right, this one, if this goes badly, I'm going to just turn off the TV. We've got Mokaev versus Malcolm Gordon. Mokaev is 7-0, undefeated as a pro. He's got an extensive amateur career as well. 22 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. and he's training out of KHK MMA team. I don't know much about them, but I do know that one of them fought this morning for Brave FC, a fellow named Khan, and he's also very wrestling focused, combat sambo champion, world champion. And it just, after seeing his performance, it made me feel more comfortable. I know that Muhammad Mokaev is in the room with really tough guys, because I didn't know this earlier. I didn't know about KHK. Now, Gordon on the other side, he's 14-5-0. He's 32 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach, and he's training out of Adrenaline MMA. So, Wiz, why don't you start us off, brother?
I mean, the money line here is pretty indicative of who people think the biggest. I mean, he's the biggest favorite on the card here at minus anywhere from minus 750 to 850, wherever you can find him. Mokaev is the superior wrestler here, but let's not sleep on Malcolm Gordon's BJJ black belt. He has 6 submissions in his UFC career, in his career as a professional fighter, and 5 KOs. I'm not going to be going anywhere near this fight, to be honest. It's too juiced, even if you choose like a finish prop. So it's a pass for me. I expect Mokaev to dominate with the wrestling, but to be honest, I would not be surprised if he gets himself in a couple of hairy situations with that BJJ black belt of Malcolm Gordon.
All right. How about you, Liam?
I think this is going to be a Mokaev nuclear annihilation, and probably in the very first round. I will take the victory lap as one of the very few people that bet Malcolm Gordon against Deniz Bandar. And the reason being is because that was the best fighter Deniz Bandar has ever fought, Malcolm Gordon. And so I was just like plus 210 on the best guy he's ever fought. And the guys he has been fighting are like, but with all due respect, like pretty scrawny guys in the regional scene, didn't look like very much physically. I was like, I'm willing to take the shot. And I know that Malcolm has real skills. He just also has these like extreme clear liabilities, like the fact that he can't take a punch and it's a fight, and so that's a real problem. And that's been a consistent problem. You can look in a lot of his wins regionally. He gets completely buzzed and then just finds a miracle sub on the ground. I don't think you're doing that against Mokaev personally. And I just think that in terms of the wrestling, the grappling sophistication, I feel like Mokaev's going to be on the same level. I think he's going to be ready for that kind of challenge. And I think that, he might hit him with like a punch from like back control or something, and he just shuts off, because that's what Malcolm Gordon does sometimes. So I just feel like there's no reason to trust Malcolm Gordon's chin in this spot. Sharp markets are leading the way on just running away with this Mokaev money line. They don't want any more money on this guy. And I think that's for good reason. I think the finish is extremely live here. And I think people saw, somebody like Charles Johnson, who wasn't really fighting for a win, with all due respect, like for a large portion of that fight, he was fighting not to be finished. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, you got to acknowledge it for what it is. If you really want to win, you do desperate things and make mistakes and cost yourself, potentially getting finished in the path to trying to win. He didn't do that. He said, okay, I'm going to lose the decision here, but people call it boring and we get to move on. And, I don't think Malcolm Gordon's going to do that. He might go for something really dumb and put himself in a bad spot. He could get submitted here as well, despite being a BJJ black belt. But I just think ultimately the durability will fail him. And I like Mokaev to get this done quickly.
Makes sense to me. Pat, how about you, man?
I'm on Mokaev. I did like just for my own shits and giggles. I did like an Evs and Ovs parlay just for a unit with 3 fighters. One of those is off. Mustafayev was one of those, but Mokaev was another one in there as well. And yeah, I think he gets the job done. I mean, he's a very talented kid. Probably will set something up off of the strikes. He feints his way in range very well, like he did against Cody Durden in his his first fight back in March. And it's likely that Malcolm Gordon will be finished in this fight. He's been finished in a lot of his appearances. Obviously, the durability is lacking. And even the best threat from Gordon is his BJJ black belt. But a lot of those were arm bars off of his back, or arm bars that he attempted and then turned into a Kimura, tried to establish dominant position. Maybe he got it. It wasn't like a lot of, really dangerous things I see Mokaev getting caught in. So give me Mokaev. You're going to have to be forced to choose if you want to play this fight between Mokaev knockout, Mokaev sub. Inside the distance is like minus 225, minus 250 as it is. A little bit too rich for my blood. So I'm just doing it in a stupid parlay and trying to get even money off of it. So give me Mokaev pretty dominantly.
Yeah, man, I went completely irresponsible for this fight. I considered, like, I don't really use, like, anchors, right? Like, parlay pieces that I just attach to everything, except when Khabib Nurmagomedov used to fight. I just don't see a path for Mokaev. I mean, oh, my God, for Gordon here. When I play a dog,
you jinxed it already.
When I'm going to stay off a favorite, I need to see some kind of path for the dog. And I don't see anything. I mean, just to push back a little bit on my boy Wiz over here about that black belt, I pulled up the record while you guys were talking. And so before the UFC, his most recent submission was Yoni Sherbatov, who never fought again. Before that was James Mancini, who's currently 6-5-0. Before that was Jordan Graham, who never fought again. Before that was Jesse Bazzi, who was 4-0 at the time, but is now 12-10-0. So long story short, he hasn't submitted anyone good at all. And Mokaev is elite. He's elite. Also, like another thing, Gordon got subbed by Albazi. I think Albazi is a dark horse of the division. I consider him a contender and a future top fiver. But still, like, he got submitted in the first round. And if he can do that, I really do think that Mokaev is just going to finish this guy. I have Mokaev parlayed like crazy. You have to go to my BetMMA page. It's too much to talk about here. I've got probably well over 12 units on the guy. Like I said, completely irresponsible.
That's juicy. Yeah, this fight just got more interesting based on that.
Completely irresponsible.
When I watch this fight, I'll be thinking about your 12 units for sure.
I consider this a max bet.
I hope it's quick and easy.
I've got him.
Dude, no lie. I think that you're. I really just think that you're in the right. Like, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hate to say it, it's just like.
I know.
You don't get spots like this all the time where it's so clear who the organization wants to win, who looks like they're going to win on paper, who's younger, who fit. Like, he just fits all these check boxes along the way.
Like, it would have to be Mokaev making a mistake, right? Like, it would have to be Mokaev, like, doing something really dumb.
I don't even think a mistake. I think it has to be an injury. I think it has to be a freak injury. I'm not really sure how else it happens. I feel like I don't even like Mokaev striking. I can't wait till he fights a good striker with good takedown defense. But I feel like he's going to outstrike Gordon if he wants to. I think he's going to sub Gordon if he wants to. But so I've got him parlayed across the board. I've got him parlayed inside the distance with two other people I'll talk about. I actually think one of them was Karol Rosa. So let me double check.
He was Diddy bopping Charles Johnson on the feet too.
Also,
people forget in that first round, he was just walking him down, Diddy bopping him with the hands. I don't think Malcolm Gordon's going to take 6 or 8, clean hooks to the jaw in the beginning of this fight. I'll tell you.
Tell me if I'm wrong. I personally think Charles Johnson would smoke Gordon, like absolutely smoke Malcolm.
He would be a clear favorite.
You saw the 5-round bout between Charles Johnson and Carlos Mota over in LFA, and Mota's a beast. Mota.
He fought Yuma Horiyuchi, who's shown he's an animal. The guy's had a bunch of wins. So for Mokaev to dominate him like that, make him look like he didn't belong, I mean, yeah. But I'll pass it to Uncle Weezy, and then we can move on. How about you, brother?
Yeah, man, this is the archetype of fight that I just don't bet on. A minus 1,200 favorite. And I mean, like, for those of you guys who are saying, like, Gordon has no chance, I mean, come on. There's a number of ways that he could win this fight. A Raven could fly into the cage and snatch out Muhammad's eye. There could be a sandstorm where and it only affects the side of the hotel that Mokaev is staying on. There could be food poisoning. He could shit his pants. There's a lot of things that could happen here, but I think the odds clearly reflect who the winner is going to be. And when you have to choose between decision, KO, or sub to get minus 150 or whatever it is, minus 250 inside the distance, I think Gordon has no chance to win this fight, and I just can't find a bet that makes sense. So I'm just staying away, but I'm going to really enjoy watching Mokaev fight. And yeah, this is a big step down from Charles Johnson. I hold Charles Johnson in a very high esteem, and I think that this is a step down for Mokaev, and it should be an easy one.
That's why it's a lot of fun knowing you guys and like being a part of this community. It's like if I know that Wiz or Wheezy or Liam or Mike's got bets on it, like I almost feel like it's like I'm personally invested even without having like a big bet on it. So I'll be thinking of you.
But so first off, Wheezy, you just totally had me in that first half. I thought you were about to school us about why Malcolm Gordon.
No. Dude, yeah.
Wait a second. Who's backing up my argument?
But I also want to just say real quick, while I did parlay the hell out of Mokaev and I consider him low-hanging fruit, I don't parlay minus 1,000s. I did this early. I got him minus 600. Yeah. And the furthest I went was minus 800. Even that's ridiculous. But once you get to minus 1,000, your parlays aren't even moving. So there's like
Yeah,
no
It's
point
like
in
10
doing
cents.
that.
Yeah.
But all right, so we'll move on to the next one, and one that's probably closer than the one we just spoke about. We've got Armen Petrosyan versus AJ Dobson. Petrosyan is 6'2" He's 31 years old. He's 6'3" with a 71-inch reach. And I've got him training out of American Top Team. On the other side, we've got Dobson. He's 6'1" 6'1", 30 years old. So he's got a 2-inch height disadvantage. He's 1 year younger, and he's got a 76-inch reach. So he's got a 5-inch reach advantage. And I am not firm on his camp. I have Westside Barbell from his Instagram. I know he trains with Matt Brown. If any of you guys know better for this fight or any other fights, please let me know. Just interrupt. It's all cool.
He's at Carlson Gracie.
He's with Carlson Gracie. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Carlson Gracie, Ohio.
Cool. So that's the camp. And I'm going to need you guys to talk me down here because I've already got a fat wager on Petrosyan and I kind of want to go heavier. So I'm going to need you guys to talk me off the ledge. Liam, why don't you start us off, man?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting one. First and foremost, got the shirt on. I'm already repping. Shout out the great state of Ohio. And AJ Dobson, he is a very strong guy. He comes from an insane, well-reputed power gym. In terms of what he brings to the table, I think he's still pretty green in terms of some of his fight skills. I think you see that in some of, the footage recently. He doesn't have a lot of extended fight tape. So when he got into the deeper rounds, he didn't really have as much to offer. Now, on the other side, Petrosyan, I've had a pretty good read on his fights. I bet him against Gregory Rodriguez. I thought that was going to be an absolute sweat. It was an absolute sweat. But, I thought he could KO him because Gregory Rodriguez always fights on very thin margins and on a fine line. But Gregory did a lot of damage in that fight as well. So, I looked at the Caio Borralho fight, and I saw some of the success that Gregory had, and I thought that Caio was going to be able to exploit him in the grappling. He was able to do that. This is the kind of fight where I think that it's a lot less likely that Dobson's able to exploit him in the grappling. So then the question is can Dobson KO him early? And I think that that's possible. I do think that he gets hit cleanly at times in his fights. It's a fight between two pretty big guys, 185 pounds, a little bit more room for variance there. A lot more knockouts occur, just by and large in the weight class. So I think for those reasons, there may be some hesitation when you start laying bigger numbers, but outside of that, Petrosyan's very good, man. I had a lot of respect for his game coming off the Contender Series, and he was calling for the Adesanya fight. He's a wild boy. He said Russian Muay Thai wants this fight, So he's very confident in his skills on the feet. I think people that force him to mix it up a little bit more will have success. I would not be surprised if Dobson was able to take him down in the first round because Dobson's a really, really strong guy, and he trains with wrestlers. Ohio, built and bred. Those guys wrestle different out there. I think that he could get a takedown in the early going, but I just don't know that he could keep that pace up. And Petrosyan tends to work his way back up to his feet and he gets angry. So he just starts throwing big shots when he gets back up to his feet. And, that could overwhelm him or it could just dissuade him from trying to go for the takedowns again. Got to brush up a little bit on some tape here, but overall I would lean towards Petrosyan but just not interested in laying big chalk on him. He's a guy I like betting as an underdog when perception is low. But I think people are kind of looking for that get back spot here. He might get it, but I do think Dobson's a pretty durable guy. I think he's tough. I don't think he's going to quit on himself. And, he's got his back to the wall a little bit here coming off the loss. So I think we're going to see Dobson try and make some improvements here. I think Petrosyan rates a little bit higher at this stage of their development, but, Dobson could be making those leaps. And I just don't know enough about his training situation right now to kind of project that out.
All right. How about you, Pat?
Okay, so I'm on the Petrosyan side, and I do like the violence in this spot is what I bet, the under 2.5. But at minus 170, I've got a couple units on it. I'll give a little bit of background on the gym for AJ Dobson, just because I know the background of Westside Barbell. I compete in powerlifting. I've been doing it for over a decade, and Westside Barbell is like the mecca of powerlifting, but they do all sports And they really set the blueprint for how strength and conditioning works for all sports. The NFL consults with Westside Barbell. A lot of track teams, Olympic athletes, they all consult with them. And one of the standouts from Westside Barbell years ago, Marcus Marinelli, he started strong style MMA in Ohio as well, which is where Stipe, Jessica Ai, Cody Garbrandt was there for a period of time as well as Team Alpha Male. So they set the standard.
Liam Hessel was there for a little while.
Oh, yeah? You were there at Strong Style? Okay, there you go.
Strong Style, yes, sir.
Yeah, so the strength and conditioning at Westside Barbell, they don't do fight training there, but sometimes they do some specific skill work as they're doing the strength conditioning, dragging sleds, pushing wheelbarrows with tons of weight, stuff like that. So Dobson is well-trained. He's a very explosive athlete, which is, I'm sure, why they recruited him to go there, because he's got the death touch, sort of like Chaos Williams does in a way. But like Liam was saying, I agree with all of his points. At this point in their development, I think Petrosyan has the cleaner, more technical striking. We've seen him go rounds with high-level guys like RoboCop Rodriguez. That's like a feather in your cap to go 3 rounds with him and actually pull off the split decision there. So I'm taking Petrosyan, but I do like the violence spot here. I think both guys are going to love this stylistic match of staying on the feet and swinging and banging. So Dobson, I think the money line should be closer. I think he's a live underdog this week for sure.
All right, so real quick before I go, I just want to address one person in the chat. We got somebody call me out about this, which never happened.
Uh-oh.
Literally never happened. So we don't talk politics. So I'm not going to address any of like the underlying shit here. But if you actually listen to anything I said on my show, A, I'm playing Aljamain Sterling. B, I said that it shouldn't matter. C, I didn't comment on anything else. So the fuck are you talking about, bro? That's all I got to say about that. I literally don't know what you're talking about. I'm on Aljamain Sterling, and I firmly believe not considering those things when I make my bets. So, yeah, but in regards to this fight, the reason I like Petrosyan so much is that I don't really think that Dobson's going to be able to get him down, keep him down. I know that we look at Armen Petrosyan's numbers, and we see that 30% takedown defense, and we're like, bleh. But against who? You know, like Kyle Kolev on the Contender Series, trash MMA fighter, terrible cardio, but you can't say he's a bad wrestler. He's a very good wrestler. Gregory Rodriguez, high-level grappling. He's not necessarily like an American freestyle wrestler, but his throws, his top control, and I personally thought Rodriguez won that fight. I had a bet on him, so I'm completely and utterly biased. But still, the way that Petrosyan handled himself there for his UFC debut, no less, by the way, to Gregory Rodriguez, Obama himself, I mean, that was impressive. And then Kai Borralho, you know, again, to me, I will talk about him soon. I think super highly of Borralho. I think super highly of his grappling and BJJ. And to have him on your back the entire time and not get submitted, I mean, it kind of feels like telling Chris Moutinho you're good because Sean O'Malley beat you up and you didn't get knocked out. But it just shows me that his ground game's maybe not as terrible as we're saying. And if we're on the feet, I think like you guys, I agree. Dobson's live in round 1. I went into this fight. I only really remembered his Contender Series fight with Hashem Arshaga, where he was a wild man, looked terrible in the striking, honestly, depended on his power, almost got knocked out himself. And then I rewatched his fight against Makhmud, and I was like, in round 1, I was actually like, oh, okay, like not bad. Like everything was straight this time. And he had said in an interview, he said, on the Contender Series, like that was just different. That was the Contender Series, and I'm going to come in more clean. And he did exactly that. But what happened? He gassed. Is Armen Petrosyan going to grapple him like Malkoun did and exhaust him there? No, he won't. But he is high output. He is going to back him up. And at the end of the day, like Petrosyan actually has a good cardio. Like I pulled up his numbers against RoboCop. In round 3, he landed the most significant strikes for himself on the fight. He landed 51 significant strikes in round 3 against RoboCop. So to me, that shows that in round 3, he's going to be the more live guy. And I personally think he's the better striker. He's the more technical striker. Of course, this is MMA, and the power puncher is always live. But I personally like Petrosyan here. I played him early at minus 235. I thought that it would just be going his way. I played it for 4 units. I read the line incorrectly. It's been just moving towards Dobson. Petrosyan's, now it's coming back the other way. He's minus 200. I think it's playable. I wanted to put another 2 units on it, but I won't do it. But I'll pass it on to Uncle Weezy. How about you, man?
Yeah, so for this one, I'm picking Petrosyan to win the fight, but I actually sprinkled a quarter unit on Dobson to win by first round knockout at plus 850 because I kind of feel like it's his only win condition here. And the dude does have a ton of power. You could tell this guy hits you right, and you're gonna go down. So, but I mean, I really do think that Petrosyan is the much better technical kickboxer here. And the longer that this thing stays at range, as the fight goes on, you're going to see Petrosyan have more and more success because he'll be making the right reads. And he's already faced a ton of wrestlers on the regional scene. You go and watch every fight of this guy, except for the Yusefi fight. He's getting taken down at least once in every damn fight. Always gets back up to his feet. And then he just starts making you pay as the takedowns get more difficult as the fight goes on. So I don't really see Dobson. I don't think we can count on him to wrestle. I think Dobson's going to come out there and look to land a big shot early. And if he doesn't, he's probably going to go away. But even if he doesn't, I think the Petrosyan will be winning those last 2 rounds, winning a decision here. But, I took that shot on Dobson because the dude just hits different. And I feel like it's his entire win condition. And we've seen, Petrosyan get slept by a power shot in the first round and knocked out in the first round. And all of AJ Dobson's finish wins are first round wins. So I'm just taking his best win condition there, plus 850, small bet. We'll see how it goes.
Weezy, I don't know if you guys watched my prop shows whenever I did them, but I sometimes like to hedge out my big bets with maybe a prop that I think the other opponent is most likely to get, like a situation like this, right? And I actually think that I'm going to do that here because plus 850, first of all, is great. It's plus 550 on Bet Online, opened up at plus 600. Of course, what is it? FanDuel, of course. And I do think it's his win condition. And all I have to do is put 0.2, 0.3 units. And I can either secure a profit or secure a small loss and still win if Petrosyan wins. That's the stuff I like to do. I know, of course, it's doomed for failure. Dobson's, of course, going to get a round 2 knockout, and I lose it all. But at the end of the day, it's worked pretty well for me, knock on wood. So I'm going to keep going with that. But Wiz, last but not least, how about you, man?
I feel like I've had a pretty good read on Petrosyan fights. I bet him against Robocop there. I sweat a lot there. And then I actually bet probably one of the biggest bets I've ever placed, 13 units on Caio, just straight up. And I feel like Petrosyan's going to be able to withstand that first round terror of Dobson because to me, it's either Dobson round 1, either KO or sub. I think he has more sub wins than KOs. From what I can see, it's 3 submissions and 2 knockouts. So he definitely can get the submission there if he's looking for the takedown. But if this goes past round 1, I do think Petrosyan's able to cruise just because of the cardio of Dobson. I don't rate it that highly at all. And Petrosyan hits really hard. He carries his power throughout the fight. And he'll be able to run away with either a decision or a knockout in rounds 2 or 3. So if I were to play this fight, it's going to be round 1 Dobson or round 2, round 3 Petrosyan. But to be honest, I'm looking to stay away and pass on this fight and just enjoy it from a fan's perspective.
Yeah, I think the real winners here were the guys who got plus 130 on the under 2.5. That is absolutely nuts. I don't know, whoever said that line was probably an intern and got fired shortly after, but geez Louise. All right, so the next fight, this one I really don't know what to make of it. We've got Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus Gadzhi Omargadzhiev. Nurmagomedov is 16-3-1. He's 32 years old, 5'11" with the 73-inch reach, and he trains with Habib and the fellas. We know that. Omargadzhiev is 13-1-0. He's 29 years old, 3 years younger, 6'1", although that's questionable if you guys have looked at him compared to his opponents. Who knows? And he's got a 72-inch reach. He's giving up 1 inch in reach. And for his camp, I've got MMA Factory. If you guys know better, let me know. So I believe it's Pat's turn. Pat, why don't you start us off, man?
Just to answer Richard Greco in the chat, what am I smoking on? I got a Cohiba Blue right here. It's not a Cuban. It's a Dominican, Honduran, and Nicaraguan blend. So just to answer his question, it's pretty tasty tonight, too, for a big card. This is one fight here where this is my true degenerate gambling play. Remember I said I was going to parlay some Ovs and Avs? Well, Mustafayev is off, so I have Mokaev. for 1 unit parlayed with Abubakar Nurmagomedov. So I'll probably only get like 40% of that back at this point. But I do like Abubakar Nurmagomedov. It is a true gamble because he's very inconsistent, and he definitely knows how to lose fights. He's had kind of a mixed record in the past in the PFL. He gets caught in some things he probably shouldn't. But Omargadzhiev, to me, like, he had a padded record going into the Dana White Contender Series. He had the fight where he looked good in the Contender Series against Janzi Silva, another guy with a padded record. Then he goes against Caio Borralho and gets blown out, gets reversed easily, doesn't even belong. And remember in that fight, he like swung a big haymaker so hard he like swung himself off of his own feet. So so he's somewhere between a Janzi Silva and a Caio Borralho. So I don't really know where he's at, but I'm gambling on Nurmagomedov. I've seen enough good things from him, ignoring the bad things from him, that I see him doing well in this fight. Also, Omargadzhiev is 29. He hasn't had a welterweight fight since he was 21 in his amateur career. So a lot of red flags for Omargadzhiev. I just have a small amount of 1 unit of value. 1 unit of money just invested on Nurmagomedov. So hopefully he comes through. I like his slow plotting style. He draws people in, goes for the level change. It's effective if he's not getting triangled.
Yeah, man, I echo the same thoughts. So I went into this fight and I saw the dog on Omargadzhiev, the dog odds. And like I mentioned earlier, I like to play dogs who have a path. And I was like, all right, if he's just as good of a grappler, let me see what his striking's like. And then let's see what we're dealing with. And then I was like, no, there was no way. I mean, his striking's so bad. And forget about that. Forget everything else. Just the fight IQ. You're fighting Caio Borralho. In the first round, you get him down and he reverses you. Then you overswing and get your back taken. Then you do it again. And then you do it again. He does it 3 times. So that's horrible. To me, that's terrible. So he doesn't have as good a striking as Nurmagomedov. In my opinion, the fight IQ is not even close. And I mean, it's pretty much impossible for us to really know who's the better wrestler, but Nurmagomedov's done it on a higher level. So I've got to lean his way. And he's also training with Khabib, all those guys. Belal's there for this camp. I know they're all training together in Abu Dhabi. So, yeah, I mean, I like Abubakar. I'm not super confident. Also, just 1 unit stake. I parlayed him with Karol Rosa for a half unit. That came out to plus 118. I played it him and Mokaev when Mokaev was still minus 730 for a half unit. That was minus 128, and that's all I'm doing here. How about you, Weezy?
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how Gadzhi looks on the scale here. First fight, like Pat mentioned, since he was an amateur since in 2014, since he's fought at welterweight. So, and yeah, Abu, the much better level of competition that this dude has faced over a long period of time. Now, he's definitely fumbled the ball on a couple of different occasions as a big favorite. David Zawater triangles him in the first round as like a minus 350 favorite. And then I believe it was the Pavel Kush fight where he was minus 500 or something like that. So
he's lucky to still have his last name, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He really is, dude. And what I thought was funny is I'm watching the regional scene footage on him, and the announcers are actually saying that he's Khabib's brother. And I was laughing because I'm like, I don't think that dude is Khabib's brother. And I think that because these guys call each other brother all the time, that the announcer's like, oh, yeah, that's his brother. They said it like 8 different times. I'm like, they almost got me convinced. But, yeah, he's not. He's a cousin. But, yeah, he's just kind of looks to be better everywhere, literally everywhere. And I think the line is still a little bit more that I'm willing to lay on Abu here just because he's fumbled the ball so many times as a favorite. I don't know if we can really trust this guy, but I'm picking him to win the fight. I'm probably not betting it.
Makes sense to me. Honestly, at this point, it looks like the line's continuing to move towards Omargadzhiev, so who knows where Nurmagomedov ends up. But Wiz, how about you, bro?
Yeah, I echo some of the same sentiments. Abubakar he leaves a lot to desire, in my opinion. And on the other hand, do I trust Gadzhi at all either? He's been, I hate to say it, but a fraud. Both of these guys have padded records. Both of these guys have fumbled the bag a couple times. And I just can't trust either of them, especially not Abubakar because of that price tag. I think he should be the favorite, but maybe like a minus 120, 130 favorite. That's probably where I would get interested if the line does continue to move. But as of right now, I'm laying off of it. I do think Abubakar is the more superior wrestler here. And yeah, I'm also interested to see how Gadzhi looks on the scales, because 170, I don't know if he's going to be able to look at that healthy weighing in at that weight. And even then, he's not the bigger man in this fight. Even though he's listed at 6'1", I don't think he's 6'1", and the face-off with Caio kind of proved that. So
that was hilarious.
that was
supposedly 5'10" and Gadzhi's 6'1", right, on paper, and then Caio's 4 inches taller than this dude. And you're like, has the whole world gone crazy?
I think Kyle's really like 6'3". I really do. Yeah. I don't know why they don't fix it. Like, it's so obvious. Like Rosenstruck, he's 5'10". Fix the freaking thing.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a fight that I might consider like a water break on. So I'm passing.
That's probably a smart move. How about you, Liam?
Yeah, I think overall I've had a pretty good read on Gadzhi's fights since he showed up on the scene. I had him in a parlay against Janzi Silva, and then I had 3 units on Caio Borralho plus 120 against him. This is a little bit harder to call for me because I don't think we're going to see as like clear a grappling domination here from Abubakar. That's not typically how he likes to operate, but I don't really believe in the Gadzhi, experiment here. I just don't believe that he's really about this life, and I think he's probably going to get boxed up. Jared Gooden, I thought was going to have some success, honestly, against Abubakar, and I was really surprised by how easy he made that look. That's the kind of thing that inspires, some measure of confidence, especially as that line starts to come down. I had a very small bet on Jared Gooden inside the distance there, and it was Abubakar who came closer to finishing that fight on a couple of occasions, rocking him with the jab. So I think that, it's probably a favorite or pass situation for me. I would have to investigate it a little bit more to make a bet. But, yeah, I think that just not a lot that I like about Gadzhi and his game. And I thought that it was a pretty exploitable spot. I only regret that I didn't put 5 units on Caio there instead of 3.
Yeah, I played Caio there too, and I was like super nervous about it going into it. But now knowing what we know in hindsight, decent bet. But I did want to mention the striking against Gooden, right? Like, I think Gooden's good, and I think cutting him was a mistake in the first place. I feel like he should still be here, and I'm sure he will be. He's on his way back, I think. But and he got outstruck by Nurmagomedov. So I thought that was a really good look. But anyways, we can move on to the next fight.
Wait, can I cut you off just 1 sec? Was anybody on the Dobson side out of the 5 of us? Anybody taking Dobson out of that one?
Just Wheezy round 1 KO, I think.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, I'm leading dog or pass in that situation as well.
Gotcha.
I'm probably going to hedge with that prop too. I think thank you, Wheezy. That was good. But all right, so this next one, we've got Zubaira Tukhugov versus Lucas Almeida. Tukhugov is 25-1. He's 31 years old, 5'8", with a 68-inch reach, training out of AKA with Habib and the guys. I know that they've been in Abu Dhabi recently. I think it's called NAS Sports Complex where they've been training. On the other side, we've got Lucas Almeida. He's 14-1-0. That one loss was to Daniel Zellhuber, who lost like the entire MMA community, like half their bankroll, including myself. 31 years old, 5'11", with a 3-inch height advantage, 71-inch reach with a 3-inch reach advantage. And he's training out of, I have Team Kiyoshi. If anyone knows better, please let me know. And I think it's my turn to start this one. I've bet on Tukhugov plenty, and he either disappoints me or just stresses me out every single time. His output is terrible. The last fight, though, that was pretty good. I felt like for his output, he definitely improved. I think they said that, like, the commentary said it was his like personal record, so that was good and stuff. But like, Almeida's the bigger guy. Almeida's got the reach advantage. Almeida has the straighter strikes, in my opinion. He's going to hit that target first, is what I'm thinking. He mixes up targets more. His output is way higher, and I think he's got the power edge here. I was thinking of playing him straight up money line just because I think that Tukhugov loses himself fights with inactivity. Like, he can be winning constantly, but he's just not doing enough. He should have beat Dawodu, in my opinion, and he didn't. So to me, I feel like Almeida could win the decision, but if you tell me someone is for sure getting a decision, someone's winning those minutes, I'm going to lean to Tukhugov. So what I did was I played Almeida decision, no action. I got him at plus 150 there. I played it for a unit, and I feel fairly comfortable there. I don't think Tukhugov finishes him unless Almeida gets exhausted. And if we're going to a decision, like I said, I think it's probably Tukhugov. If it's Almeida, it's going to sting for a second, but I'm not going to lose anything. So whatever. But that's what I'm thinking. How about you, Easy?
Yeah, this is a fun fight, man. I had a lot of fun taping this one. I just didn't remember much about Tukhugov, and I just wanted to get a much longer look at him. I think a sneaky play in this fight, well, it's not that sneaky, but violence is kind of sticking out here, and for a couple of different reasons. First of all, Almeida hits hard, very, very hard, and the kid just has got a lot of power, and he's finished 100% of his pro wins. Now, he's coming up a level here, so it's always tougher to finish at this level. But Zubaira, now he only has finished 2 of his UFC wins, and there's 5 of them. But he's got 2 losses by decision, and he's got a draw as well. But you know what Zuby does really well is he hurts people in that first round. And now he knocked out Chavez in the first. He knocked out Aguilar in the first. But he had Ramos on skates in the first. He had Laron Murphy on skates in the first. And Lucas Almeida, actually, so I had bet the Lucas Almeida finish only prop in his last fight against Trizano and cashed that one. But if you remember, Trizano hurt him in the first round, and Almeida was on skates. So I've seen Almeida get hurt by Italo Trindade on the regional scene. And I think there was one other guy as well. It might have been the Tavares fight that he won by knockout, where Tavares, I think, landed a big shot. So not only have I seen Zuba land big shots in the first, but I've seen Lucas Almeida absorb big shots in the first. And then Almeida hits like a truck anyway. So maybe fight to end in round 1 could be a cheeky way to look at this. Zuba by first round KO right now, I believe, is plus 950 on FanDuel. And that's how he's finished both of his UFC wins that were finishes. So it's not a bad look, man. But I also think that the fight doesn't go to decision, which is sitting at plus money, is not a bad way to look at this fight as well. Plus 120.
Yeah, that's honestly not a bad look. I know that there's someone on Twitter, I think he's relatively new, MMA Propaholic. You guys have probably seen him. He was on this pretty early. So props to him. I also think that's a pretty decent side. But Wiz, what are you thinking?
It was funny because me and Pat were talking about this fight before the show for a little bit. And we echo a little bit of the same sentiments. I'm not going to give away too much of what Pat has mentioned since he's going to be coming up soon. But Tukhugov has fought the way better brand of competition here. And it's hard to deny it. Win, loss, or draw, the competition he's faced is levels above of Lucas Almeida. I do rate Lucas Almeida, although he's a really good striker, and he has power. Straight shots, looping shots, whatever you want, he mixes it in really well. And for me, I think Tukhugov has that striking defense to dodge most of his shots. The only issue I have with going a little bit heavier on Tukhugov, because he's the side I'm picking here, is the range. I don't know if he's going to be able to manage the range as well as he would want to, in my opinion. If he's able to mix in the wrestling early and often, I think that's his easiest way to victory here. I'm also not sleeping on Almeida's submission ability here as well, because we saw him throw up a couple submissions in his last fight. So I'm on the Tukhugov side here. I haven't bet him yet, but I probably will get to the window more likely than often. And give me Zuba here. Although in the future, I'll be looking out for Almeida in a bigger dog spot.
Kind of crazy that Zubaira opened up plus 130, no?
I wish I had
Wild.
That's pretty weird. But Liam, how about you, brother?
Yeah, I bet Almeida in his last fight. I bet the plus 190 money line, and I bet 1 unit as well in the inside the distance at plus 400. And just similar inside the distance price here this weekend. The guy definitely hits hard, man. And he's a gritty guy. You know, he'll stay in the pocket, get hit, keep throwing. I do think there's a chance he could get finished. I think that, to Uncle Weezy's point, there's a prop that I was, keeping my eye on, let's say, which is just the fight ends by KO. Both these guys come out swinging heavy early. And, I think Hakeem Dawodu, if he had a little bit better footwork and was a little bit more thoughtful in his pressure down the stretch, he probably could have finished Zubaira. Zubaira was gassed completely. And it's one of my favorite MMA memories. Stop running! He's chasing him around the cage. That's just hysterical. And he really earns that nickname, Mean Hakeem. That guy's coming out with bad intentions. But I think in this spot, man, it would probably be a dogger pass situation for me. I just think Almeida cracks. I do think that there's going to be a few opportunities to bet on him. I bet on him last time. They give me about the same price on the inside the distance. The money line side has come down pretty considerably now. His decision line has some credence as well in terms of what the bookmakers are respecting. It's like plus 225. I was surprised to see it that low. So for me, I think that Almeida inside the distance would be the way I would consider playing it. But I'm not super confident about this fight.
Liam, I remember we were talking about that last Almeida fight on your show, and we both shouted the KO at plus 800. So yeah, that was a good cash. So I definitely like Almeida, but
he's a homie for that.
Definitely.
I had Trezano in that fight, and I was sick.
Trezano's a local guy, man. I hated to go against him, but sometimes you gotta go where the money is. You gotta follow the money.
For sure. How about you, Pat? What are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, I mean, these guys both hit hard. It's especially Almeida. It's hard to remember that this is a 145-pound bout for sure. I got 2 units at minus 155 on Zubaira Tukhugov. I think he's the better guy pretty much everywhere. To go along with some good things about Almeida, which I do like. I mean, his size for sure, especially his fighting activity. He's been the more active fighter, of course, not the highest level of competition, but Tukhugov is a guy who's been riddled with layoffs and things like that, not the most active guy. So that goes against him there. But Mike, you were saying that Couch Warrior, you were saying that his striking technique was pretty good. I do like that. I like his nice 1-2s, his sort of unpredictable counters. His hand speed is good. But then to combine that with what Uncle Weezy was saying, he does get dropped in round 1. That's no knock on his technique. It's just his striking defense has a lot to be desired. And I like the fact that, Almeida's good at striking at range, but Tukhugov is a very forward pressure guy. He stalks his opponents down. He might not give Almeida room to get all of those strikes off. And Tukhugov is a guy who not only does he have the better, experience, but proven cardio too. He's been to a lot of decisions. He's at least able to go that route. And if he doesn't hurt Almeida early, maybe Tukhugov gets caught by something. He's at least got that wrestling to bail him out of a bad situation. And with a bet on him, I really wish that Tukhugov would just go for that path of least resistance and wrestle early. I don't think we're going to be that lucky. I think it's going to be a striking battle until Tukhugov sees like, oh shit, I just got hit hard. I'm losing the striking exchange. Now I'll panic wrestle, So I think he's got the well-rounded skills to win this fight, and I'm pretty confident in him. I think the money line could be a lot higher, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I will say the one thing I noticed is the striking defense of Tukhugov is really good. Like the numbers, sometimes I feel like the numbers on UFC stats don't really match up with what we're seeing when we're taping fights. But like, I feel like it matches up. The way he gets away from strikes is like really impressive. So definitely understanding that. But we'll move on to the next one. One where I made a bet way too early and messed up with the line. But we've got Volkan Oezdemir versus Nikita Krylov. Oezdemir is 18-6-0. He's 33 years old, 6'2" with the 75-inch reach. And I couldn't really place him. I know he's in Sweden. I don't know if it's All Stars or somewhere else. If you guys know, hop in. On the other side, we've got Nikita Krylov, 28-9-0, 30 years old, 6'3", 1-inch height advantage, 78-inch reach, 3-inch reach advantage. And for him, I've got Global Fight Gym. So I believe it's Weezy's turn.
Yeah, so for this one, the under 2.5 opened up on Bet Online, I think around like minus 140 or minus 150. And then for some reason, it went to minus 126 in the Nikita Krylov fight. So I hammered that for 2.5 units. I've got the under 2.5, minus 126. I believe you can still get it around minus 140. Krylov, 9-7 in the UFC. He's finished 8 of his 9 wins, and he's been finished in 5 of his 7 losses. So it's in over 80% of Krylov's UFC level fights have finished inside the distance. And then when you go back to the regional scene, I think it's 34 of 37 fights have finished inside the distance. This guy has a 97% finish rate in his wins. 97% finish rate. So when you get archetypes of fighters like that, usually when you compare, like for instance, this is taking place at 205. So when you compare the 205-pound weight class finish rate, and then you compare it against the finish rates of the fighters involved, you're usually going to see the bookies overprice those lines in comparison to the benchmark. It's barely overpriced, and it's a Krylov fight. So I don't know why they do this, especially because Oezdemir has a 73% finish rate in his wins as a pro, and he's been finished in 4 of his 6 losses. So he's also the archetype of fighter that you want to bet on for unders. Krylov brings chaos. He's going to stay in your face. He's going to mix in the grappling. He's going to take 1 or 2 or 3 to give 1. He's exactly the kind of guy I love to bet on for unders, and to get an under 2.5 in a 205-pound fight at minus 126 and with Nikita Krylov involved is just my favorite play. And that way, I don't have to pick a side either. I can just be on the side of violence.
That makes a lot of sense. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, so Weezy, you summed it up really well. Both of these guys go for it, especially Nikita Krylov. And we really saw it in that last fight against Gustafsson. He handles opponents that he believes that he should handle. And he really went out there and just stuck it to him. So I really like Nikita Krylov in this spot. Man, in that last fight for Oezdemir, he didn't really impress me, even though he got the W against Paul Craig. I think he could have finished him a couple of times, but Oezdemir was hurt himself a couple of times from Craig's striking, and Paul Craig doesn't really outstrike that many people. Although it has been improving lately, it's pretty rare to see Paul Craig outstriking someone. And that gives me a lot more belief that Nikita Krylov here is going to be able to get that KO victory. So I personally, at the moment, have Nikita Krylov inside the distance, and I'm probably also going to be on the under 2.5, just because I think this is the spot where I'm going to be the hammer, and I found my nail. Right now, currently, I have 1.5 units on Krylov inside the distance, and I'm looking to add more.
All right. I like it. How about you, Liam?
Yeah, I made the regrettable decision of betting real US dollars on Alexander Gustafsson in his last contest. That was regrettable, boys. Yeah, listen, I don't believe in Nikita Krylov overall, but it's light heavyweight, and so you got to measure your expectations. This is another winnable fight. You kind of just look through light heavyweight, and a lot of the roster stinks. And I think, unfortunately, the same is true of Volkan Oezdemir. I bet on Paul Craig in a lot of fights. I don't think I had if I had a money line play, it was like a half a unit or something very small on Paul Craig. But either way, I really like Paul Craig. I bet on him many, many times. I've won a bunch of money on him. And I kind of thought that Volkan could make a stupid mistake, fall into something. He fought well, but he fought so conservative that I just worry about him moving forward. He didn't want to hurt Paul Craig, it looked like. He was content to just be the guy who was more comfortable in the fight, doing his thing, throwing a couple more shots, but there wasn't really a lot of vicious intent. Whereas you compare that with how Krylov came out his last fight, and he just bum rushed a guy who wasn't supposed to be in there with him and absolutely killed him, just nuked him, never gave him a chance. I think that all those kind of things point me to the Krylov side here. Just seems like the more aggressive, guy who cares about winning, and as silly as that sounds, it's just like Volkan seemed to me like a guy who's just happy to be out there, happy to win. Oh, I get to win this one. That's great. I feel like Krylov's going to try and take the win out there. So I like Krylov as a side, but haven't invested in this fight personally. And I do think there's always some volatility, with light heavyweights, but both these guys kind of car crash candidates. I feel like they could go out there and swing to a finish. But Krylov, for me, just feels like the guy who's a little bit more trustworthy at this stage. And I think he's got the submission upside as well. Much better grappler than Volkan Oezdemir. So I don't know that I expect the fight to go there, but he probably has that better bridge, the gap, the wrestling to fill in the spots that Paul Craig didn't. He didn't have a clinch game that was competent to pull him down, and he didn't have a way to really impose his takedown. So it was a lot of flailing. It was a lot of, haphazard guard pulls that just got him punched in the ribs a couple of times. I don't think we'll see that from Krylov. I think if he pursues takedowns, it'll be a little bit more effective. But I wasn't impressed by the Johnny Walker fight when he got swept a few times in really ugly transitions, and they both looked like they were completely gassed in the second round. So I wouldn't lay a ton with confidence on the Krylov side, but do think that he probably wins this one. I think he's a little bit fresher. Also, I'm going to jump up and grab a cup of coffee, and I'll be right back.
Go for it. All right. Pat, I'm pretty sure you're on the other side, so I'm hyped to hear from you. What do you think?
Isn't it crazy how the 205 light heavyweights used to be the premier division from 2005 to probably about 2012 or so, and John Jones had to retire all of the old guys that were in that division holding guard. But now we got Volkan Oezdemir and Krylov, who are two guys who they're about 50-50 in the UFC a piece, 9-7 for Krylov, 6-5 for Oezdemir. I'm on the Oezdemir side here. I do have a money line bet on him at plus 145. I just think this fight is closer to even than the money line would indicate for Oezdemir. I think this fight plays out primarily on the feet for a while. Krylov does a lot of good work on the ground, but we've seen Oezdemir actually hold his own as far as keeping the fight on the feet. 0 and 15 for takedowns for Paul Craig. We're looking at 1 of 4 for Ankalaev. Looking at 1 of 9 back a couple years ago in the Rakic fight. So I like Oezdemir here. His hand speed is still pretty good. His defense is pretty good. And if he can bank rounds early, I'm kind of like MMA Wheezy as far as whenever I see a Krylov fight, I'm like, what's the fight? Does it go to decision? What's the unders? Because of just how often his fights finish. But I have trouble. I'm not saying that's not valid here, but I just have trouble seeing where that happens in this fight. I think Oezdemir, I do have to say, I think his power is a little bit overrated based off of some early KOs he had, but I favor Oezdemir on the feet here, and I think he could, even if he gets in the driver's seat for the takedowns and ends up on top, I think he's decent on top as far as being on the ground. So give me Oezdemir here. I think he does squeak this one out. It's not a high confidence pick. It's 1 unit at plus 145, but in a fight that I actually see as being more coin toss or not, give me the plus money.
So when I was looking at this fight, I was pretty hyped that Wheezy's going to be here. Wheezy, I don't know if you have your stats or whatever. I looked at Oezdemir's takedown defense, and I saw that 86%. Do you know what it was before Craig went 0-15 on him?
Yeah, I can get that for you right now. So Craig goes 0 for 15, so that's 6 for 30. So that would be 80%.
Okay, so almost no difference. So he does show a really good takedown defense. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Krylov. I played him way too early. I got it at minus 220, did 2.2 units. I really wish I just waited, and I don't love having that much on him because I do see the upside on Oezdemir. I think he's got the better boxing, but I also think he's been fairly limited of late. His output's been fairly limited. He's not doing much other than the hands, and I like to bet on guys who have more weapons. I think Krylov's got more weapons here, more paths using that wrestling, more paths with those submissions. I mean, 15 submission wins. You gotta give that credit. He has 6 sub losses, but Oezdemir, I don't think is going to submit him. I don't think so. And Oezdemir has been submitted twice himself. So I like Krylov. I don't love the line I played it at, but what can you do?
If you could see this fight, imagine this fight playing out. How do you see this playing out, Mike?
I'm thinking we're going to see a lot of wrestling from Krylov. I think on the feet, it'll be fairly close. I do think Krylov's got good striking, but I have to give it to Oezdemir personally. But I also think Oezdemir he likes to counter strike, a lot. It's like his thing. He doesn't lead often. So that's another issue I've got here against someone like Krylov, who at least in his last fight especially has shown, he's going to go for it. Even in the Ankalaev fight, he took round 1 on all 3 scorecards there. So I don't know. I just think he's going to be the more active guy here. So that's what I'm thinking. But we can move on to this next one, which is really good. We've got Makhmud Muradov versus Kai Borralho. Muradov is 25-7-0, 32 years old, 6'2" with the 76-inch reach, and I've got him at Ankos MMA. I don't know if I totally botched that name or if you guys know better, but that's what I've got. Borralho is 12-1-0. He's 29 years old, 3 years younger. There's no shot in hell he's 5'10". He's 6'2" or 6'3". It's just a fact. Like, I'm not making a joke. It's just literally a fact. And he's training out of Fighting Nerds. So Wiz, your turn, man.
Yeah, so I'm on the Caio side here. Parlayed him with Karol Rosa myself. I can definitely see the angle for Makhmud Muradov as an underdog. Really powerful striker, really technical. But Caio's chin is tested, in my opinion. He ate a lot of shots in that Aaron Jeffrey fight in the Contender Series and didn't really flinch. I also feel like if he goes to his regular game plan here and takes Makhmud down to the floor, it'll be a pretty successful endeavor there because Makhmud doesn't have the best when it comes to wrestling. We saw that against Gerald Meerschaert, and Gerald Meerschaert's no slouch either. So I'm not going to overhype Caio's grappling either. But we've seen him do it time and time again. He's good in control positions, and I do think it's opportunistic for him to get a submission here. But yeah, I'm not too much invested in the fight. It's a total of 1.5 units in that parlay, so nothing too crazy. But I feel like I have a good read on Caio fights since he's been in the UFC. So yeah, give me Caio here. I think he also can hang with him in the striking department as well because he's pretty technical himself. I do see this guy going pretty far in the division.
All right, Liam, how about you, man?
Yeah, I got to tell you guys a quick story, which was that I was at a casino in, I want to say it was Pocono, Pennsylvania, and it was my first time out there, and had just got a couple of Meerschaert inside the distance tickets, couple Meerschaert, by sub tickets in my pocket, and while everybody else at the sports books ripping up tickets, fuck. Shit, God damn it. I can't believe it. How'd this guy sell on me? Oh my God. I'm just sitting there like, he's doing it. He's really doing it. And this guy, Gerald Meerschaert, he shipped so many bags. What a hero. But on to this fight, guys. I think Makhmud Muradov in that fight, kind of got exposed a little bit for, just being a little bit overrated in the striking. It's not to say he's not good. It's not to say he's not talented. It's just to say that a lot of people underrate Gerald Meerschaert, and the guy can strike. He can move. Sometimes he gets destroyed with the first punch. When that doesn't happen, Gerald Meerschaert can really, stick it to people and keep pressuring them. And I think that the kicks really made him second guess himself. In that fight, he was getting slammed with really hard kicks. He prefers guys that'll go out there and box with him. Muradov will make you look bad sometimes in the boxing. He's pretty fast. He's got good hands. And I think that Caio, if he didn't have a really trustworthy chin, I would be a little bit more nervous in this fight because I do think he might take a couple flush punches, maybe a couple that he doesn't see coming. But Muradov's not really a huge one-hitter quitter type of guy. He mostly was outlasting guys in the UFC and styling on them and kind of like painting a picture and having very comfortable fights. And when he had an uncomfortable fight, shit went sideways so quick your head will spin. And I think that, this is another fight where I don't expect most guys to have a clean win over Kai Borralho. Like, I can't think of a guy in the UFC I'd be really confident that was going to do that. So for that reason, I just have to think that Kai Borralho is probably a deserved favorite in the spot. He's a really tricky guy. He's going to be a favorite against a lot of people. He's got real skills and he can grapple. He's big. He's physical. He's creative in how he approaches the grappling as well. I don't think it's going to be easy for a lot of people to beat him right now.
All right. Makes sense to me. Pat?
I got a little story just like Liam about that last fight as well. Makhmud Muradov actually in his time in the Czech Republic did a little bit of gay porn. He did a little bit of I don't know if he was taking something or giving something, but he was doing some photography for a gay porn studio. And Gerald Mearshart happens to be like a good hometown buddy of mine. I know him personally. So, I had just like Liam, I had the Gerald Mearshart buy sub ticket as well as a big underdog. And as soon as he locked up that submission, I texted Gerald. I said, I knew you'd get that choke. Muradov's been in some freaky shit. And I sent him some of the pictures of Muradov. So he appreciated that as he was having his victory beer. But this is my biggest money line of the card. Caio Borralho, I got 3 units at -200. And I've got a quarter unit on Borralho by submission, which FanDuel had for plus 550, which is a little bit mispriced compared to a lot of books. So not a big confidence on the submission. Obviously, we've seen Borralho, kind of ride out these controlled positions, more of a position over submission type of guy. But it might be just time, Muradov's lost 4 times by submission out of his 7 losses. And I think Borralho can handle himself on the feet as well. Not to mention, this is his 5th fight in like 13 months. So much more active guy. Give me Borralho here.
The books that know their ass from the hole in the ground are pricing it 3-1, and the books that don't are pricing it 4.5 and 5-1. Just do your own homework.
Plus 550 on Caio by submission. Quarter unit on that one.
Yeah, I missed that plus 550, but I played plus 500 also. I like Borralho here as well. I have, I guess, some concerns because I do think Muradov is a really, really good striker. But if you look at it, first off, Borralho, his output kind of sucks, but he's extremely accurate. 62% striking accuracy. Not the best sample size, but it's what we got. 42% for Muradov. I mean, we saw him get outstruck by Mearshart. I guess you could say that Mearshart broke him kind of with pressure, but Borralho will also. Borralho constantly pushes forward, goes for that takedown. He's going to keep doing it no matter what. He's going to try to get him down. Another thing is you got 4 sub losses on the Muradov side. I'd put an asterisk on it, though, because other than the GM3 sub loss, he hasn't gotten submitted since 2013. All 3 were from then or before. So you got to mention that. He's been good since then, but he also hasn't fought, elite BJJ guys. Borralho, there's not much on his BJJ record, but if you look at Tapology, he's got a loss to Jonathan Almeida in grappling. And I looked this up. I really wanted to see it because I wanted to see how good he was before the Omargadzhiev fight. And first off, this thing was a circus, man. It was a 4-on-4 or a 5-on-5. And Jonathan Almeida and Borralho were on separate sides. Almeida's entire team didn't participate. It was just Almeida. He took out all 4 guys on Borralho's team. And then he took on Borralho, and they went to whatever it was, overtime. And then it was an escape on the Jonathan Almeida side. But I just thought that was cool. It was pretty crazy to watch if you guys want to look it up. But yeah, I think Borralho wins here. I wasn't super confident on him to play a money line at where he was. So what I did was I parlayed him with my anchor, Mokaev. I got that at -145 for 1 unit. And then I played him by submission for a quarter unit. And then just as a little thing, I played him by sub or decision on FanDuel at -110, also for a quarter unit. Kind of just cover that sub prop. But that's what I'm feeling there. Weezy, how about you, man?
Yeah, let me give the case for Muradov because you guys are all on Borralho. I don't have a bet on either side on this one. I am a big fan of both of these guys, but especially Borralho. I think I love smart fighters. I love guys that take the path of least resistance, because as a gambler, I want the bet of least resistance, I don't want to be throwing my fucking remote through the television because that bitch Corey McKenna won't try to take down Elise Reed. That does nothing for just more gray hairs on my already gray head. My ticker doesn't need that shit. So I know if I put my money on Borralho, he's not going to fall in love with his hands when he needs to grapple and vice versa. But Muradov's done a really nice job of keeping fights standing. 80% takedown defense, and he's being controlled less than 5% of his UFC cage time. And there's a reason for that. He moves very well laterally. His feet are always moving. He's feinting. He's moving laterally very well, controlling distance, and he's really only planning those feet to throw. So he does a really good job with his footwork of making it difficult, even when you're pressuring him, to get that ass up against the cage and to try to head him off and take him down and then keep him down. Because when you do take him down, he does his best. It's like lava down there. He pops up. So Caio is going to have his work cut out for him trying to get this guy down and take him down and keep him down, right? But Muradov just showed really beautiful striking in those first 3 fights against Alessio Di Chirico, orthodox, Trevor Hot Sauce Smith, orthodox, Andrew Sanchez, orthodox. Then he gets in there against the southpaw Meerschaert, and Meerschaert kind of Homer Simpsons him for like the first couple minutes. Muradov is landing everything, right? But he gets through it, and Muradov kind of fades a little bit because he's trying to finish the fight. He's throwing with 100% power, and then that's when Meerschaert starts to land some big shots, and then he gets that takedown in the second and finishes the fight quickly. But I think Caio is going to have a harder time getting Muradov down than some people think. But I also think the fact that Caio is a southpaw is going to open up some things against Muradov that wouldn't be there if he was an orthodox fighter. So I think Caio is definitely the side here. You know, I think this line is a little bit wide, to be honest. I think it's a little bit disrespectful of the better striker in Muradov, of the more experienced mixed martial artist in Muradov. And Muradov is 4 inches taller than Caio Borralho, who's only 5'10", right? But other than that, yeah, I'm picking Caio. I think Muradov has faced the better brand of competition. I think he's the better striker. I know he's more experienced, but still, I mean, I think the sky is the limit for Caio Borralho. Love smart fighters, love well-rounded fighters, and Caio really fits that archetype.
I feel you, man. How about you, Wiz?
I started on this one.
All right, I'm glad to know then. But all right, so yeah, real quick, I wanted to ask you guys 2 things. First off, we had a question in the chat from Prince of Mischief. Thank you for always tuning in, brother. Thoughts on the overs? Anyone have any thoughts on the over here? I forgot what it said at. I'll pull it up.
So I saw that the over 1.5 opened at -175, and I remember I was talking with Brady before probability, and I had mentioned that. I'm like, you know, I might take a shot on that, but now I believe that that's been hit, and it's right around maybe -205 for the 1.5. But it was set at 1.5, and I kind of figured it'd be set at 2.5. So my initial thought was to go with the over, but I think a lot of the money kind of agrees with that and has already pushed it a little bit further out.
Don't you love those spots when it's like, you think it's going to be the over 2.5 and then it ends up being the over 1.5, and you're just like, oh, I can smash that over. Like, there's a lot of good spots for that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It looks like the over, the alternate. I'm looking at some of the books that have the alternate over at 2.5. The over 2.5 is -120. The under 2.5 is -110.
Yeah, I think this fight goes to decision.
Yeah, probably most of the time, I would imagine. But what do you think Muradov's win condition is? Is his win condition under?
I think his win condition might be under, just due to his power striking. But I also
what's he going to do? Outstrike his? Is he going to outstrike his way and stay on the feet the whole time and make his way?
If he's able to stay on the feet, then yeah. But
it's going to be tough.
Yeah, very tough.
Yeah, his finishes are great.
Check it out. Makhmud has spent 93% of his UFC cage time in 4 fights at distance striking range. He's very good at keeping it standing. And look at those fighters. Di Chirico, Trevor Smith, Andrew Sanchez, and Meerschaert. All 4 of them are better grapplers than they are strikers.
The one thing I would caveat that with is Alessio Di Chirico can hardly buy a win that's not a meme head kick knockout right now in the UFC. Trevor Smith, who are you? And then in terms of what's his name? The last one you mentioned. I'm sorry. Sanchez. I've been cashing on fading Andrew Sanchez every step of the way, and people keep telling me how good he is at wrestling. He's got a wrestling background. He's gotten some takedowns on guys that concede takedowns, but he's not a guy that I'm classing as like the best wrestlers in the division, this kind of thing. For me, I've always felt like that's just a little bit overrated. So that was the only pushback I wanted to give. Definitely better competition.
And then Meerschaert like didn't have him down until it was like too late. Like once Meerschaert got him down, it was all over, So
that's always Meerschaert. Meerschaert's the comeback king.
Subs.
Yeah. It's all part of his plan. He likes to get the crowd on their toes, and then he goes in for the kill.
But I was gonna say about Sanchez also, he only shot twice against Muradov. So it's not like Muradov was
There's
like
a reason,
defending
though.
the
I'm
entire
telling
time.
you, man, that footwork, it's good. It's good. And we're in the big cage here. I just think it's going to be a little bit tougher for
The
Caio.
difference is Caio, smart, thinking fighter. Andrew Sanchez.
The smartest guy with a neck tattoo in the
Definitely.
game.
Just not doing the best brain thinking in the fight. I'm sure he's a smart guy outside
Weezy,
the octagon.
Have you,
In
have
the
you
fight,
heard he's
turns
a
off.
free spirit? Have you heard that?
Weezy, you and Brady, you talk about like outside of cage decisions in terms of haircuts. How about those tattoos, man?
Man, yeah, the fight or die and the free spirit
He's all
tattoo. We
in.
were joking on the DraftKings show that the loser has to get the free spirit tattoo across the neck.
But that's like the thing that we always think about as Americans, though. Like you see all the, people here, they get like the Japanese or Asian characters in their arm, and you just wonder what that looks like to like a native speaker. Like now we get to see what that looks like for us. Like we can see English words on Caio Borralho, and we're like, what is this? Why'd you write that on yourself, buddy?
Yeah, I'm gonna put.
Probably looks cool back in Brazil.
But all right, next up, we've got a fight that has the entire MMA Twitter sphere in a division. We've got Belal Muhammad versus Sean Brady. Belal is 21-3-0. He's 34 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. And like I mentioned earlier, he's been training with Habib and the guys at NAS Sports Complex over in Abu Dhabi, which is a great look. He has Abubakar there, who's his weight class. Habib, who is like 280 pounds now. He's got whoever else is over there. I imagine the entire team's there. I don't know them all. But on the other side, we got Brady. He's 15-0, 29 years old, 5'10", so he's 1 inch shorter, 73-inch reach. We're going to give him 1 inch reach advantage, training out of Renzo Gracie, Philly. And you got to give him this edge. He's from the same place as Mushroom, the Lunch King. So already he's at an advantage. So you do have to consider that.
He's eating good.
Those cheesesteaks around there. I mean, those blueberry muffins. You got to think Brady's got the edge here. But Liam, what are you thinking, man?
And I'll tell you this. I still have to do some research for this fight, so I don't want to short shrift these guys. What I'll say is grit, guillotines, Irish name like Sean Brady. That's a good way to sell me on a fighter. I'll tell you that. On top of that, kind of emulate a lot of the shit he does in how I approach the grappling game, right? Pretty short guy myself, pretty compact, like to play the top game and like to be pretty controlling from those top positions, be smothering, make it really difficult for people to breathe down there. And Belal, he's kind of benefited from some matchmaking, I think, in some recent bouts where, he kind of had an opportunity to be the dominant wrestler, to be the dominant physical force, and to be the dominant grappling presence in the matchup. A lot of guys were, conceding positions to Belal. I think the last time Belal was really put in the defensive posture was by Damian Maia, and that was Damian Maia like probably 5-6 years past his best sell-by date. And, even still, like, he had adapted his game that, if you knew how to really, really stuff a takedown, then you couldn't, he couldn't do anything to you. Like, he showed that over and over in several fights. Like, if he can engage in the grappling, he's going to fuck you up. If he can't, then he can't win the fight. So it was just like a lot of the situations there, I felt like a younger Damian Maia does better. I feel like we have Sean Brady right now. He's extremely physical. I think he might be able to out-physical Belal. The question for me is just, can I trust Sean to go out there and do the damn thing for 15 hard minutes under this kind of pressure across the world somewhere else? But, I also got to just say my coach was coached by Daniel Gracie when he was still at the Enzo Gracie Blue Basement. So, a lot of personal ties to this fight. I believe in the guy's jiu-jitsu game. I've seen it work against the best guys. And for me, Belal, he's a good fighter, but I feel like that no contest against Leon has kept him around this title picture and conversation a little bit longer than maybe it ought to have stayed around. I do think that was going to be a really tough fight for Belal to win down the stretch. I feel like Leon was starting to find his timing and tagging Belal with a lot of big shots early in that fight. So I don't know how that would have fared for Belal down the stretch, let's say. But I think that in this case, it's going to be tough for Brady to find the finish potentially. Belal's a really tough guy. But if he gets to one really dominant position, then it's about skills, especially if it's early. And the more skilled guy in the grappling is going to be Sean Brady, as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't matter. Khabib's not going to be able to come in there and tag in like a tag team partner. So for me, that's the one holdup I have on the Belal side. I think he's a great fighter, and I wouldn't be stunned if he pulled off a decision here. I didn't drop 10 units on Sean Brady, something like this, but I just feel like Sean Brady probably has a slight edge most phases of the fight, and except in experience. So as long as he's able to bring his skills to the table and really, bring it to bear, I think that he is the deserved favorite here, even if ever so slightly.
All right, Pat, how about you, man?
Yeah, so I'm never really like a big Belal Muhammad fan, so to speak, but he does win fights. He's got sort of a Neil Magny-esque record in the UFC at this point, on a pretty good streak. Besides that, no contest to the current champion. Now, Belal Muhammad, I'll go Uncle Weezy for a second with the numbers. 72% of Belal Muhammad's fights go to decision. 92% of his wins in the UFC are by decision. So for me, his decision prop actually becomes his money line, so to speak. So I got plus 195 on Belal by decision, put 3/4 of a unit on that. And I just really think he's a crafty guy. He just knows how to win fights at this point. He's probably going to take the perimeter of the octagon. Sean Brady is very physical, very good at pressuring forward aggressively. But Sean Brady, his stand-up is very hesitant. He seems to have the skills when he lets go, but he's very hesitant to do so. And as we saw against Vicente Luque in Belal's last fight, Belal is really good at skirting around the perimeter of the cage, going left, going right, and then darting in the middle with strikes, timing a good double leg takedown. Whether he's going to get that or not, his timing is just really good. He's crafty. So Belal's got some pretty good weapons on the striking. I probably favor the striking for Belal. I just think he can win 2 out of at least 3 rounds of this fight. So I agree with what Liam said. I think Sean Brady is super skilled. We haven't had a chance to see him against super high level guys. The Michael Chiesa fight is very impressive for sure, but there's still a lot to learn about Sean Brady. Obviously, he's undefeated. I'm just going to take the guy who's got a proven track record at winning decisions. I like that prop. Plus 195 is what I got that at. So not a lot invested. Like I said, 3/4 of a unit. But for the guy who's had, 16 UFC fights, gone 12-3 and won no contest in those, sign me up all day for that as the underdog.
Yeah, man, I'm on Belal as well. I'm sick and tired of doubting Belal. I've lost too much money trying to do it. I thought that he's very limited to his wrestling. And he's shown that even if he has to really only depend on his wrestling, he's going to do it. He's going to force it. He wants this. He's got that dog in him. You guys see that Yoel Romero clip of him just barking at the cage? That's Belal Muhammad. And you look at Sean Brady, and I feel like you can poke a few holes in his record. Michael Chiesa, for example. I had Chiesa there. I thought he did terribly. And he still won round 3 completely on the feet. He outstruck Sean Brady, and it was not a good look. Sean Brady on the feet, he's never really outstruck anybody. Against Court McGee, that was a good one. But even then, a lot of those strikes weren't at distance. And the Ismail Nurdiev fight, I wanted to talk about that one because that guy lost me some money this morning. I guess I lost me some money this morning trusting him. He was fighting in Brave CF 63. He was a champion. He's fighting a guy who is not a good striker at all. Bad takedown defense. The guy's name is Marcel Bandel, but he's a good sub guy. But I watched the Sean Brady fight. I saw him get put in trouble, and I was like, he's going to survive this. He survived Sean Brady. He got Kimura in round number 1 in less than 2 minutes this morning. Cost me a nice fat unit on a parlay with him. And that was just something that I wanted to talk about. The Christian Aguilera fight, he did what he had to. He dispatched a guy who had no business being in there with him. And I think we got solid odds on him too. He was -2 something. I played that there. And yeah, I just like Belal here to outwork him. I think that Sean Brady's shown that in order to win fights, he's got to grapple and he's got to use that jiu-jitsu, take the back at least, control fights from there. And I'm not convinced he can do that to Belal. And if we're on the feet, I don't think Belal's some elite striker, but he's improved and improved and improved. And he showed that against Vicente Luque. He was not out of place on the feet there, which I thought he would be. I thought that if Luque stuffed those shots, he would clean him up on the feet, and he didn't. So I do like Belal. I played a money line plus 120 just for one unit, not supreme confidence. I do think Sean Brady's the real deal. The second this guy gets his striking together, he's going to be terrifying. But until then, I'm good with Belal here. How about you, Easy?
Yeah, this one, I mean, it's the most closely lined fight on the card. And I think that both people, both sides have great arguments as to why their guy can win. I'm a big fan of both of these guys. Belal, just fantastic fight IQ. I love it when fighters take the path of least resistance, and Belal always does that. Always mixes in the wrestling when he's the better grappler. Always uses his good takedown defense, which is at 91.67% when he's not the better grappler. But the weird thing is, like, you look at that takedown defense, and I think that is something that's just shifting people's opinion in the direction of Belal. You say the guy has stopped 33 of 36 takedown attempts, and he's being controlled less than 5% of his 222 minutes in the cage. So it's not a fluke. It's not like it's a 2-fight sample size. We got a 16-fight sample size that's spanning 222 minutes, and this guy is being controlled less than 1 out of every 20 seconds he's in the cage. So, but when you look at it a little bit deeper, 21 of those takedown attempts were in the Maia fight. So in the other 15 fights, he's only had 15 takedowns attempted against him. What happens when a guy who isn't 40 and not a good wrestler, by the way, Damian Maia is never a good wrestler. He's the kind of guy who could beat you missing 10 straight takedown attempts, and on the 11th, he says, fuck it, I'm pulling guard. And then he pulls guard, he goes for a leg lock, he sweeps you, he gets on top, and before you know it, that arm's underneath the chin, and you're out, right? But Brady's different. This guy's built like a fucking brick shithouse, man. So what happens if Brady pressures? What happens if Brady's conditioning is fixed now that he got that nose issue fixed? Supposedly he's just absolutely killing it at the UFC PI with his conditioning right now. I think this is going to be a different level of pressure grappling and wrestling that we've seen Belal Muhammad have to deal with yet at this point. He just hasn't faced aggressive grapplers, you guys. And Sean Brady's different. If Sean Brady takes you down, you don't get back up. Can anyone remember? Other than Court McGee, who is fucking fantastic in the grappling. Court McGee is one of the most underrated grapplers in the entire organization. When you look at his statistics, they're unbelievable. And he's been in there with some of the best, too. So I am picking Sean Brady to win this one by decision. But I cannot get to a bet because I think that there are so many reasons to like both of these guys. And I think that this is a super high-level fight.
Makes sense. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways you could look at this fight. One, looking at the inexperience of Brady versus the experience of Belal Muhammad. The second way is it's a grappler versus grappler matchup. It might just stay on the feet. We've seen that happen time and time again. Now, what I think is going to happen is it's going to play a lot on the outside. I think Brady's going to be the one pressuring here. But the third round against Chiesa was very, very discouraging. And when you're looking at the striking of Sean Brady and how he was not able to eat the shots, he looked like he was being hurt every single time that Chiesa touched him. So I'm not as convinced that Brady can eat as many shots as I think Belal could. And I'm not saying Belal is a great striker either. We've all mentioned this. Belal isn't that good of a striker, but he's been polishing it up. And against Luque, he looked pretty decent in his approach. So I think he's going to employ a similar approach here, moving side to side against the cage. Because Luque does try to get some takedowns here. He's pretty good with his BJJ as well. And Belal seemed to deal with it a little bit better. And no way am I comparing the takedowns of Luque to the takedowns of Sean Brady, that's for sure. But looking at it in that light, I think this is a dogger pass situation. I personally have a unit and a half on Belal Muhammad moneyline. I didn't want to get too cute with it and take the decision, even though most of Belal's wins are decisions. But to me, he's already at dog pricing. I like it. So I think it's more of a coin flip of a fight. So I'm going to take the value here on Belal Muhammad. And I think if this does go to a decision, similar to these London cards where we have a lot of these London fighters, Belal Muhammad's in Abu Dhabi. So who do you think this decision is going to go to if it's a really close fight? So you got to give me the dog.
All right. Had to block someone in the chat real quick. Yeah, spam. But all right, we'll move on to a very good fight. We've got Katlyn Chookagian versus Manon Fiorot. Chookagian's 18-4-0. She's 33 years old, 5'9" with a 68-inch reach. And this is a camp I have no idea about. Do any of you guys know where she's training? I know she's in Long Island, but that's all I know.
I have seen her posting pictures with Gregor Gillespie. Caio Sermina is her husband, who's also a wrestler. So I'm sure that it's like a wrestling-based camp. Also, just for people outside of New York, very briefly, basically New York has like central powerhouse locations for wrestling, and otherwise it's a somewhat mediocre wrestling state. Much love for New York wrestling. I'm a part of it, but just truth be told, Long Island tends to dominate New York wrestling. So, she's in the right place in New York in terms of finding valuable bodies, and looks like she's got a lot of talent in the room with her.
I've been spanked by several Long Island guys in wrestling, so
shout out, brother. I've been there.
But all right, so I believe it's I gotta introduce Manon first. 9-1-0, 32 years old, 1 year younger, 5'7", 2-inch height disadvantage, 66-inch reach, 2-inch reach disadvantage, and I've got her at Boxing Squad. Patrick, it's your turn, brother.
There's a few, money trains on this card that I've hopped off of for this event, and the Katlyn Chookagian by decision has been a really nice prop for us, for a long time. I'm hopping off of that for this one. Just the unknowns of Manon Fiorot. I mean, she's, obviously very green to the UFC. She hopped in there against, TKO'd Leonardo, TKO'd Ricci, who was short notice up a weight class, and now had 2 decisions herself. She looks very high level. I think she wins this fight. I think it's by decision. But I don't think it's by playing Katlyn Chookagian's game. I think Fiorot is going to use combinations to strike her way in range and actually make this more of a lackluster fight than we would expect from 2 strikers, right? I think it's going to be Fiorot kind of getting her way in range, not, kind of nullifying that, height and reach advantage Chookagian and kind of hugging her against the cage using that clinch game and stalling her out. I think that's how Fiorot wins this fight. I do like Fiorot. I got no bets on this fight because, again, you've got all this data from Katlyn Chookagian, who's been very good to us as bettors, aside from those high-level fights against the champion and Andrade and a couple others several years ago. But Fiorot, there's a lot to prove in this fight. Obviously, fighting Katlyn Chookagian at flyweight's that's like your ticket to the big show. That's your ticket to potentially being next in line for the champion. So I think Fiorot gets it done, but I don't have enough data on her to really, pay that price in her money line and confidently bet her here. But give me Fiorot to get the decision. It might be closer than the money line indicates.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on Manon, and I've got a few things here I'm thinking. So, first of all, I've been riding Chookagian all the way. I've had a good time betting her. I backed her against Antonina Shevchenko. That was around when I first started gambling on MMA. I backed Andrade against her. I backed her against Calvillo. I backed her against Arugio. I backed her against Maya. I backed her against Ribas. And like Pat said, I'm ready to get off the train. I think Manon's got this. I think she's just better. She's a better striker. Both of them have really good outputs. Chookagian, really straight strikes. There's nothing to dislike in the striking of Chookagian. I just think that Fiorot's better. I think she's more dynamic. I was watching one of her fights. I don't remember which one it was. I think maybe Maya. She threw a head kick. It went up this way, missed. The leg went up all the way this way. Instead of stepping down on it, she just brought it back up and just kicked her in the face and then brought it all the way back down. And I'm no striker. My extent of MMA is
I saw Wiz do that on Twitter recently. In his sparring practices that he posted. It was pretty impressive, Wiz.
That seems pretty difficult. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the Chookagian Ribas fight, right? What was the main takedown Ribas used to get Chookagian down?
The wizard kick. It's just the schoolyard headlock.
What does Fiorot do really well? that same exact thing, except I think she does it better than Ribas does. I think she's bigger and stronger than Ribas. Ribas was literally going up a weight class for that fight, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, I mean, I like Manon a lot. Like Pat said, I'm not willing to go too heavy against Chookagian. I do believe in her abilities. She's shown that she's truly elite, unless she's only losing to the best of the best. So I only played her for 2 units. I got it at minus 180. The line, I think, is a bit wider now, minus 205. I guess it's still playable for 2 units, but I wouldn't stake more than that personally. Wheezy, how about you, man?
Yeah, I've got a max bet on this fight, actually. I went 5 units on the Manon Fiorot finish only prop. Just because, look, I mean, like, you know, I think this is a close fight, actually. You know, I mean, Chookagian, 2 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage, 12 more pro fights, 11 more fights at the UFC level. Really good distance striking, really good distance management, good volume. Has fought the better brand of competition, has beaten the better brand of competition. And you know, her wrestling game is not good. She's only gotten 4 takedowns in 15 fights, and she's controlled her opponents less than 8% of her UFC cage time. So it's not really her game to go out there and, you know, and win in the grappling exchanges. But there's a lot of the facets of how we handicap these fights, you know, where Katlyn is better. But the one thing that she just doesn't do well at all is, you know, get knockdowns, land with power, fight with an urgency to finish fights. Now, Manon, it's different. You know, Manon comes after you, man. She's mean, and her striking is mean. She comes forward. She throws a lot of kicks, and she could get you in the liver and finish you. She's definitely got a lot of power on the feet, and when she hits people, it hurts, and she goes to finish. If she thinks you're hurt, she's going to rush in, and she's going to go to finish you. So with Manon Fiorot being a minus 200, minus 210, minus 220 favorite, I kind of expected to see the finish-only prop around minus 300, minus 350. Got it at minus 205. So I was like, fuck this. I'll put 5 units. If Katlyn Chookagian finishes Manon Fiorot on Saturday, I'm fine with it. I'm going to be out 5 units, you know. But a Raven could also come into the cage and snatch out her eye. She could shit her pants. You know, there could be a sandstorm. You know, like there's all these things that could happen. Is Katlyn Chookagian going to go in there and finish Manon Fiorot on Saturday? The answer is most likely no. So, yeah, finish-only prop, Manon Fiorot. Other than that, I think that this is a close fight. I just think all the finishing equity is on the Manon Fiorot side.
I think that's a slick play, Weezy. I forgot to mention, I sprinkled her KO at plus 490 for 0.2 units also. I feel like that's live also, as well. But, Wiz, how about you, bro?
Pretty passionate take on this fight. A lot of the times when I'm looking at up-and-coming prospects, new fighters in the UFC, I tend to try and draw comparisons or a fighter they fight similar to. And in my exact description of the fighter that Manon Fiorot fights like is, and I'm going to read it word by word, Fiorot is like a Chookagian 3.0, not just a 2.0. She has power, she has really slick striking, and has a takedown game. So that in its own told me a lot, and just seeing her record in the UFC and how she's performed kind of matches what the description I wrote was. To me, I think Fiorot is going to be a little bit too much for Chookagian here. I also am like you guys, where I've rode the Chookagian train throughout her UFC career here, but I think it's time to hop off. I think Fiorot is too dominant. I think she's going to employ those takedown techniques. The last fight for Chookagian, I feel like I got lucky and I stole money from the bookies there because I think Ribas did win that fight. And for a fighter who's much smaller than Fiorot, who also is not as strong, to be able to take Chookagian down like that and control and beat her in the striking, I think Fiorot is going to have a walk in the park here. I don't think it's going to be close, and I don't think her it's going to work here. So
Manon does that too.
Yeah, she does, but not as often.
Yeah.
And one of the key strikes I feel is going to be very valuable for Fiorot here is that side kick to the stomach, where she used multiple times in her last fight to keep distance, especially since she is at a reach disadvantage here. So I have her parlayed with a fight that's coming up, I believe, next.
All right, Liam, you're up.
Yeah, well, speaking of, Wiz feeling like the bookie owes him money. Geez, Louise, 9.5 units down the tubes on Amanda Ribas. I thought she won the fight. I did, but life goes on. That was one of my bigger plays of the year that did not come through. And, kind of bittersweet because, really close split decision type territory. I was on the underdog, really not going to cry over spilled milk in those situations long term, but does not feel good when those don't go your way, I'll tell you, boys. And, this time I'm actually feeling a little bit the other way, right? I see everybody's on Manon Fiorot this weekend, and I really like Manon, but I think there's a couple of things that are interesting about this fight. Number one, this was booked to be in Paris. It was going to be a pretty big deal. Home field advantage, Manon Fiorot, big star. Now it's like a neutral playing zone. It's just like they're out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think, the crowd is going to give much of a rat's ass about this fight, frankly, just being, objective. So then trying to gauge this out, I think Katlyn Chookagian gets a little bit slept on. And now I'm going to have to disclose my biases up front again. She's a Renzo Gracie girl as well. And I did say to myself, man, I deserve this, feeling like I got kicked in the nuts because I really tried to bet 9.5 units against the Renzo Gracie product. She responded really well in the jiu-jitsu. I'll also say I had a half unit. So to round out the full 10-unit spot on Amanda Ribas inside the distance, she got to those dominant positions. She looked like she could have finished the fight, but the defense of Katlyn Chookagian was on point, and she spent about 2.5 minutes underneath, then frees her arm, gets out. I think that there is a level gap between even somebody like Amanda Ribas, somebody like Katlyn Chookagian, and somebody like Manon Fiorot, who is like a kickboxer, with MMA, bona fides, and she's really strong and physical. I don't think her grappling skill for skill is on the level of Katlyn Chookagian. Recently awarded her jiu-jitsu black belt, training with a bevy of high-level wrestlers in New York, saying that she's leveling up her wrestling in advance of this fight. So I think the idea that Manon's just going to get easy takedowns on her is also going to be difficult. I think Manon is able to leverage her size, strength, physicality, her leverage. She's really tall, so she can bully around a lot of girls in the clinch. I don't think she's going to do that against Katlyn. Not easy. And I do think her best chance to win, her easiest path would be to land a knockout shot. Katlyn's a little bit soft to the body based on the Andrade fight. I bet so much money on Jessica Andrade in that fight. I feel like I don't want to just stay on the wrong side of these Chookagian fights. I also bet her hugely to win by decision against Jennifer Maia. That was like a redo of the same fight that they had before. I was like, man, they really ran it again at the same price. God bless you. But in this spot, this is a pretty big underdog number for somebody with the consistency and, the success, frankly, of Chookagian. And really, she's lost split decision fights and one to Shevchenko. That's the one that gives me the most pause because that was based on physicality, it was based on strength, but Shevchenko is also a really technical grappler. So unless you're my girl Talia Santos plus 450, by the way, should have got that belt and gave me my money, another one that they robbed me on. But either way, right, I know, grappling talent when I see it, and Katlyn Chookagian in that last fight impressed me with what she was able to survive and get out of. Amanda Ribas is going to, wrap a lot of girls up on the ground. I hate to tell people. And that was one example where at 125, where she was feeling big, strong, physical, she was able to get some throws, but Katlyn Chookagian responded well, gets back up to the feet, answers, wins the round. I think that sharp markets are pricing this, in my opinion, like Katlyn Chookagian is going to win by decision.
Let me jump in and say one thing real quick. In regards to this being in the middle of the desert, not really a home fight for either one of them. Manon used to fight in UAE Warriors, 3 straight fights. She used to train there. It's her favorite place to be is Abu Dhabi. Alex Bahunin just did one of those humanizing fighters. And
I like it.
Yeah, and Manon Fiorot actually said that her favorite place to be on the planet is Abu Dhabi. I'm like, who the hell would want to be out? It's hotter than hell out there, man. From everything I hear, it's just so hot. But she fought in UAE Warriors for a stretch of 3 straight fights, trained out there. She loves it out there. So she's going to be a lot more at home there than Chookagian will. But everything else that you said, yeah, I mean, like this, I think it's going to be a very close fight unless Manon lands a big shot and finishes her.
One more thing to interject with is what a great panel you got here, Mike. Wiz Betts, our resident striking expert, and then we got Liam Picks Fights, the grappling expert here. This is amazing.
You're
honestly, good insight for all the chat. Yeah, good insight.
But thank you, brother. I appreciate all you guys being here. Obviously, you guys are all dope for coming on. But only other thing I wanted to bring up is you guys were talking about like kind of robberies and stuff. The one time I feel like I robbed everybody and should give money back was when I bet Arlovsky against Collier. And oh my God, man, I felt so bad. I know you can't ever feel bad about robberies.
It was amazing.
Because I've been robbed plenty as well, but I felt like that was just atrocious. And I felt so badly for all the people who
ask me how many units I had on Jake Collier.
Whatever it was, you did the right thing. I thought you won that fight.
8 units at plus 128 for the people at home. 8 units plus 128 on Jake Collier.
5 units plus 120. Me and Liam were talking about that one for weeks.
Yeah, you guys got absolutely robbed. I'll admit that. But let's move
I think
on.
those were back-to-back weeks. Hebas and Jake Collier, I'm pretty sure occurred back-to-back weeks. I was just like, all right, I think I'm going to find something else to bet on. Maybe table tennis. But
Liam hit his 100-unit mark, though. You hit that 100-unit mark, Liam. I feel so bad for you.
Animal.
Hey, I got a couple of them back. I've gotten a couple decisions. Jun Young Park beating Eric Anders is what I like to think of as my saving grace.
And I was on the wrong end of that one, but even I kind of thought Jun Young. But there are so many close fights that admittedly kind of wind up 50-50. And no matter what, you either robbed the bookies or you got robbed. And it's just the sport that we bet on, man. Variance it sucks. And having to put your money in the hands of the judges, it hurts sometimes.
Hey, just replying to this one guy in the chat, AY, what a coincidence. All the people that bet on Ribas think she won the fight deserve to lose. I bet on Katlyn Chookagian that fight, and I thought that Ribas won, so no bias there.
I had Chookagian by decision in a parlay. I took a shower after that decision. I thought Ribas won it too, and I had money on Chookagian.
Yeah.
I bet
Hold that L,
too, I still think Ribas won as well, so... Anyways, let's
hold that L, brother.
That's his second one of the stream already. This is the same guy as the Sterling comment. But anyways,
ban him.
We've got I let them stick around, let them take their L's. But we've got Beneil Dariush versus Mateus Gamrot. Jeez. 21-4-1 for Dariush. He's 33 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. And I believe he's still at King's MMA. Wiz, you might know better than me there. And Gamrot on the other side is 21-1-0, 31 years old, 5'10" with a 70.5-inch reach. So let's call it a 1-inch reach disadvantage. And I believe he's at American Top Team. Yes, he is. Both guys southpaws, which is pretty interesting as well. And I believe it's my turn. So I'm on Gamrot here. Similar to my Manon play, it's not a heavy one, minus 180 for 2 units because I do respect Dariush. I just think that Gamrot low-key has him covered. You can talk about it. You could say Dariush, he's easily the more experienced guy in the UFC. But if you look at their last 5, I don't think you can really say he's faced the better competition. It's either even or slightly towards Gamrot. Last 5 for Gamrot, Tsarukyan, Ferreira, Stevens, Holtzman, Kutateladze. Kutateladze might not have much of a name, but the guy's an absolute beast. I thought he lost the Gamrot fight. I had money on him there. I thought he won his fight after that against, blanking on the name, another beast, but lost that one. Regardless, on the other side for Beneil, Ferguson was his last one, and we've seen Tony recently. Ferreira, Holtzman, Close, Camacho. So they share, I believe, either 2 or 3 opponents, and I just feel like you can't really say that Dariush is out here facing the better guys. In terms of wrestling, I think you have to give it to Gamrot. The guy just went 5 rounds with Armen Tsarukyan, who we all admit is elite. I thought Armen won that fight again, admitting my bias. I had Armen in that fight. I still thought he won, But the way that Gamrot scrambled, first of all, and especially in round number 1, showed me that I don't think Dariush is getting top control here. That I really don't think so. I think that if he gets him down at any point, I think Gamrot's going to scramble. He's shown an elite ability to scramble, and his own offensive wrestling is really good as well. In terms of the striking, I can't personally place who's better here. I kind of like Gamrot a little bit better. I think he's more defensively sound. I like his jab a bit better. I think he can keep that distance a bit, stay a little bit more safe. Both guys put together nice combinations. I also feel like Dariush is a bit more hittable. 58% striking defense over the amount of fights he's had. I feel like that's good, but like the way he got wobbled in that Drakkar close fight, my favorite sequence in MMA is literally that sequence where Drakkar close almost knocked him out, and then he backed him up all the way back and then knocked him out. The meme of Joe Rogan, John Anik, and Daniel Cormier, that came from that fight. So I just feel like Gamrot's going to be the safer guy. I think if anyone's going to get hurt on the feet, it'll be Dariush. I don't expect a finish. I know some people are talking about it. I personally think we go to a decision. It's only 3 rounds, but I like Gamrot to win this fight. I do think he's got Dariush covered. I think we're looking at a real contender here, and I played him for 2 units at -180. Wheezy, how about you, man?
So I haven't made any bets on this fight yet, but the thing that I do like the most that the prop template that I put together loved was the under 2.5 or the fight doesn't go to decision for this fight. At plus 130 for the fight doesn't go, and at plus 155 for the under 2.5. Both of those are underpriced by about 7% when you compare them to the divisional benchmarks. And they're underpriced by 16 and 21% respectively when you compare them to the 60% under 2.5 rate and the 60% fight doesn't go to decision rate that these guys have combined at the UFC level. They both have 60% finish rates, by the way. Dariush's fights have finished 12 of 20 times. Gamrot's fights have finished inside the distance 3 of 5 times. Add that up, that's 15 of 25, 60%. So they're both good finishers. Dariush has been finished in every single loss, and Dariush brings a style that I think usually lends itself to fights ending. The dude's got a ton of power. He's a fantastic submission grappler, and a guy like Gamrot's got a bunch of power in his own right. We saw him flatline Holtzman, and I think that this is going to be a little bit like a car crash here. I can't wait for this fight. But I just feel like this money line is disrespecting a guy in Beneil Dariush, who's the more experienced fighter, who's fought the better brand of competition over the long term. I mean, this guy's got 20 fights at the UFC level. He's been around for a long time. And he's 15-4 with a draw. So that's a very impressive record to put together over a long career at this level. Only 6 of his 26 fights were outside of the UFC, and the striking numbers that this guy puts up are fantastic. His grappling is fantastic. I mean, Gamrot, everyone's talking about him being the better wrestler, right? He's controlled his opponents for 20% of his UFC cage time. Everybody gets right back up when Gamrot takes them down. Now, Dariush, he only has 26 takedowns in 20 fights, but this guy is controlling his opponents 43% of his 185 minutes in the cage. So when Beneil Dariush takes you down, you fucking stay down. Dariush has fought the better brand of competition, and he's got better power numbers too at this level. I like the plus money on Beneil. I like the plus money on the under 2.5, and the fight doesn't go to decision here. This is such a high-level fight. I can't wait for this one.
Yeah, so the one thing I wanted to actually push back a little bit on, Wheezy, is so the 20% takedown, control time for Gamrot, I wanted to pull up the numbers. So I feel like if we look at it, it gives it a little bit of context. Like Armen Tsarukyan, right? Elite wrestler. Diego Ferreira, elite BJJ scrambler. I mean, the stuff that guy does when you try to take him down. And then Gamrot also finished him in the second round.
He got hurt.
Jeremy Stevens, he finished. That was pretty much immediately, right? 1 minute in. Scott Holtzman, again, finished him pretty quickly. And then Guram Kutaladze, he got 3 minutes of control time. But like I said before, I rate Guram big time. I think he's a future top 5 guy easily. But yeah, I mean, you do have a good point. I just wanted to bring that up too. But Wiz, how about you, man?
Yeah, really tough fight. Obviously, Beneil is the owner of the gym that I train at, so a lot of emotional ties there. But I had to be emotionless in doing this tape because I'm in the business of making money, regardless of who the tie is with, if there is any tie at all. For me, I do think that Gamrot has him covered everywhere. No disrespect to Beneil here. I've seen him training in the gym hours and hours. And
Is he going to kick you out after this?
I don't think so, but I hope he doesn't see this. No, I've told him personally that I've probably going to be betting against him. And he's like, hey, I get it. But I think Gamrot is the better striker here, speed-wise. Power probably goes to Dariush, in my opinion, but it's close. Grappling, in the wrestling aspect, I do like Gamrot more than Dariush, but in the jiu-jitsu, I got to lend it to Dariush here. And I do think this fight goes all 3 rounds. I think both guys can take a punch, even though Dariush has been finished in his only 4 losses. 3 of them came by knockout, 1 by submission. But I don't think there's the threat of the sub here from Gamrot. The knockout, there is a chance, but I think this is going to be a really close decision. I personally am on the Gamrot side. Like I said, I have him parlayed with Fiorot. And yeah, going to be a very tough fight for me to watch, having a betting side and then an emotional side. And that's why I'm a little bit more not so upbeat on this one.
That's normally when I try to either play an over or stay off. Rob Whittaker, when he fought Adesanya, Holloway, Volk 3. I'm a huge Holloway and a huge Whittaker guy, so I just played those overs. But Liam, how about you, man?
Yeah, I think that this is a great fight. 2 very talented guys. One of my favorite fighters in the UFC is Beneil Dariush. I just think he's fun, action fighter, always brings it, but it's been plagued with a little bit of inactivity of late. Had to pull out of some recent bookings, dealt with some injuries. Don't love that as the backdrop leading into this contest against somebody this talented. That being said, my analysis at the time leading into the Gamrot and Tsarukyan fight was that I felt like it was too fine a margins to work under. I don't even think I submitted a written analysis for that main event because I thought it was an extremely close fight. I couldn't get a great beat on it. And I said for that reason alone, it was a dog or pass situation for me. And a lot of my friends, a lot of really sharp guys were hammering Tsarukyan. Hindsight, he probably looks like the right side. I did hit a live bet on Gamrot in that fight just because I could kind of see the writing on the wall that like this was a kind of contentious decision on its way. He was like plus 350 in the live market. So I did think that, Tsarukyan should have won the fight, but I didn't think that the margins were insane. I thought especially the 4th and 5th rounds, Gamrot found his way in there. And what really impressed me was how, this guy Gamrot, he just doesn't stop shooting takedowns. Like at a certain point, he does look a little bit tired, but it doesn't slow down his pace at all. And the one criticism I would lend towards the Beneil side is like, if you really force Beneil to work at a high pace rate, he'll keep going, and then eventually he's just out of gas, and he just looks like he's drunk. Like he is like out there like huffing, and like he's so damn tough that he stays in there and keeps throwing. But like that Jakar close fight is like the celebration of all the things that are so awesome about Beneil, but it's also just the constant reminder you should have in your head that like Beneil can't be a massive favorite in these fights because he's willing to stand in the pocket 6 inches away, toe to toe, and throw heavies until one man falls. And like that will eventually bite you. And against somebody like Gamrot, like, do you guys remember the other guy that knocked Scott Holtzman's head off his shoulders? I don't remember that because like Scott Holtzman's a tough guy. He's a gamer. He stays in the pocket. He tries to really, keep a gritty fight going. And that's normally what he does. It's a close decision. He normally drops it more often than not, but he's like, 0.333 win percentage in the UFC type of guy. He got blown out of the water and knocked out like bad. I feel like the same kind of fate could happen later in this fight. if Beneil is not able to get off on his game. I think if it turns into a wrestling match, a grappling match, it's anybody's fight to win or lose. I think that the scrambles will be close. I think that, again, fatigue could be a factor there. I think in the early going, Beneil is going to be an absolute hammer and extremely difficult to get any success on in the grappling. He's got heavy hips. He's a really awkward guy. You ever seen the build of Beneil Dariush? He's built like he's like a, I'm trying to think of something really goddamn wide. He's built like my man Patrick over here. You can't wrap your arms around him. You know what I'm saying? Like, just Beneil's got this weirdly dense back. He doesn't look like an athlete, but he's just big and strong and awkward, hard to get a hold of. Gamrot does strike me as the guy that's going to be able to figure that out, though, because he doesn't really do a lot of upper body traditional takedowns that are really hard to pull off on a guy like that. He does a lot of funky things. And, like, I'll say another thing from experience. My life, my career, my wrestling was based on I get this guy to shoot a single leg or a double leg that he doesn't really believe in. I pull him up, and now we're wrestling. Now we got a good start. And so you're almost like encouraging that shot. The guys that would beat me, they're all from Pennsylvania, by the way, but they would come out and they would shoot a low single leg, and that was that. They were too damn fast. I didn't know it was coming, and every time they'd get in on it, they'd take me down, and now I got to start down 2 points in the match. It's like I feel like the way that he shoots his shots is one of the hardest guys to replicate, to prepare for. He does unorthodox takedown attempts, and he's doing it all at such an insane speed. He's hitting these insane peak outs out the back. When you try and sprawl on him, when you try and hip down, I feel like eventually it might just be a factor where Beneil can't keep up with the speed of the transitions over time. And I think even like 3 years ago, maybe that wouldn't be the case, but he's coming off some surgeries. He's the little bit older party in this matchup. And I think Gamrot's just a little bit fresher. I think he's on insane steroids. I love everything about this guy. Give me Gamrot. But I haven't bet on the fight yet, for whatever that's worth. I think that Mateusz Gamrot, he's a problem, and I think he's here to stay in the top 5 and top 10 in the lightweight division.
That's actually something I wrote in my notes. I forgot where I heard it. I think it was the commentary or something. I know Beneil got surgery, right, for his knee or something like that. What does Gamrot always shoot for? He goes for those singles, right? Like, that can aggravate that knee. Like, if he's just going for it, pulling at that knee, like, that can hurt him. But that was just a thought I wrote down. But anyways, we'll move on to a fight that we're up to the good 3, the big 3. So
you never got me.
Oh my God.
Pat, no, I only had 1 point on this fight, which was one, I saw you block the AY guy, but he had the best line of the entire chat. And I'm only going to repeat it because Wiz is a friend of mine. But he's, I think he was bouncing off of Wiz saying he's betting against the gym owner, Dariush. He said, Wiz bets has no loyalty, a snake in the grass, just like TJ. That's why I was cracking up during Liam's beautiful breakdown.
Yeah, I shot him out.
That got me right in the funny bone. It really tickled my funny bone. A snake in the grass, Wiz.
It's one thing to disagree with us, but then to start.
Yeah.
I'm good there, but
I said it to his face, so that's all I could do.
Hey, that's legit. But anyways, for this next one, we've got Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley. Peter Yan is 16-3-0, 29 years old. He's 5'7" with a 67-inch reach, training out of, I think he's actually back at Tiger Muay Thai now. Sean O'Malley's 15-1-0, 27 years old, 2 years younger, 5'11". He's 4 inches taller, 72-inch reach. That's a 5-inch reach advantage, and he is out of MMA Lab. You do have to give him credit. He's training with guys like Kyler Phillips, Casey Kenny, legit bantamweights. But Weezy, it's your turn to start us off. So go ahead.
Yeah, I got Peter Yan as Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week here. I just think he's built different. I think he's a different level of fighter. Sometimes, you can kind of just break down the fight from, the numbers perspective, from the stylistic perspective, who's a better striker, who's a better grappler. And then, you put these two next to each other and I just like Peter Yan is terrifying to me. The guy is fucking terrifying. Like, if the guy smiled at me, I'd probably shit my pants, because like this guy, he just looks like one of those dudes that, is cold-blooded, that he wouldn't even bother to talk shit. He would just fucking kill you. And I think he's going to do that to Sean O'Malley. I think he's just another level of toughness, another level of fighter. And so what I did for this one was I wasn't entirely sure that Jan was going to win a decision, right? Because he can be patient, as Sean can be, Peter can be patient. So I max bet the finish only prop. Once again, I just don't see a world where Sean O'Malley finishes Peter Yan. I don't know how that happens. I think Sean's a fantastic striker, but I just if he leaves Peter Yan in a heap on the ground, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I am gonna be fucking shocked, just absolutely shocked. So I max bet the fucking finish only prop at -200, and then I find out today that FanDuel opened it for Jan at -176, and then I found out, to my chagrin, that it moved to -154. So please do better than your Uncle Wheezy, because Sean O'Malley isn't finishing Peter Yan, period. And you can pretty much, Jan's the favorite in this fight. He's about a 70% implied probability to win it. He's not getting finished by this guy. So I think that, and Peter Yan is very precise with his boxing. This guy's got a ridiculous amount of knockdowns. I think it's 10 knockdowns in 10 fights, you guys. That's scary. Look at the level of competition that Peter Yan has been fighting. He's knocking all of them down at least once. So, like Peter Yan here, a lot.
Wheezy, I pulled up best fight odds while you were talking about the scorecards, no action, because I was curious about that. It's -265 on Bet Online, and that's the only line I'm seeing for it.
Yeah, so I got -200 on DraftKings, but it's FanDuel that opened that thing at like I said, in the -170s, and then money came in on the O'Malley finish only prop. There are people out there that think that O'Malley's going to finish a guy that Siberia couldn't finish.
Right.
I'm going to play that if that's there.
It's -176 on FanDuel right now for the Peter Yan decision, no bet.
Yeah, I'll probably top
-176.
But Wiz, your turn, brother.
Yeah, for Wiz's ass shaving of the week. Yeah, I think Peter Yan's gonna have a fun night on Saturday or morning for us. Sean O'Malley does not strike me as the kind of person who is durable. We've seen him not react well to being hit a couple of times, even though he hasn't really faced the best competition and the hardest of hitters. I do think if Peter Yan doesn't employ those leg kicks that he usually does, it's gonna be a big problem for O'Malley. I know he does have to close in on some distance because he's at a 5-inch reach disadvantage, but one of the best pocket boxers in the UFC is Peter Yan, and I rate his striking as high as it could be. So for me, I think this is Yan's fight to lose. I'm not going to say O'Malley can't land a lucky strike because everyone has the button and everyone can be shut off, but Peter Yan is one of those guys where if you are not a power puncher, I don't think you're going to be putting him out. And O'Malley, to me, is more of just volume. I don't think Peter Yan's going to be submitted to a volume of strikes, kind of like how we've seen in the past with other fighters. So I personally have no bet on this myself, but I do think Peter Yan wins pretty easily. It's going to be really fun to watch, though.
Liam?
Yeah, I think this is another very interesting fight. I think that, by and large, the top 3 fights on this card are probably the hardest 3 fights to call for me in recent memory to top off a UFC card. So with that being said, this is the one I feel the most confident on, and I do think that Peter Yan is the side. Sean O'Malley's a good fighter. Again, good Irish name, like to root for these guys, weed, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's cool, fun guy. And I do think he's also really skilled and talented, right? He goes out, he tests himself at grappling tournaments. He does, a lot of the right things, but I think that this is a huge step up in competition for him. He's been given a pretty navigable path through the UFC to this point. And now they're throwing him in the deep end of the pool a little bit. They're saying, if you're really about that life, we give you a new contract, we give you a little bit more money. We got to give you a really stiff test here. And I think that, the way that Jan is talking about this fight kind of maps with how I view this fight, which is he said, I appreciate Sean O'Malley. After this fight, his fans are going to be my fans. That's what he's trying to do. He's like, oh, this guy's really popular. That's very interesting. I'm going to beat the shit out of him, and then I'm going to be very popular. I think that Petrosyan is still that guy in terms of dangerous contender. He's the same age basically as Sean O'Malley, a little bit, like maybe a year, just a year and a few months. I think that this guy, man, Petrosyan, I faded him bigly with Aljamain Sterling because everybody in the world was telling me how Aljamain had no chance, and they were saying, look at how he got run over in the first fight. And I kept pointing back to the fact that he had just gotten neck surgery. He said, going into that fight, I could hardly lift my right arm. So, did that look like Aljo in the first fight against Petrosyan? No, he looked like shit. He fought like shit. He would tell you he fought like shit, and he fought like shit. So he looked like shit, and everybody knew he wasn't going to win that fight. But not every fight's the same. So then the next fight, I'm like, what? The guy who was the number one contender in the division, we all agreed on that, is now a 0%er against Petrosyan for what reason? So this is a completely new matchup. Right now it's like, imagine we took Petrosyan against, some plucky upstart from the top 15, which is what we're doing. And now we say, well, this guy's really popular, and he's got this dynamic striking. But we don't know how he reacts when he gets hit. When he does get hit, we've seen somewhat poor reaction so far. We saw him get pressured all over the octagon by Chris Mutino, who then got completely starched by Guido Canetti. By the way, called that on Pub Sports Radio before it happened, said, maybe Guido Canetti round 1 knockout would be worth a poke because Chris Mutino runs onto every punch he finds. So I can imagine a scenario in which Petrosyan walks onto some punches here and completely no-sells them and throws back punches that Sean O'Malley goes, what the fuck was that? That's, to me, the image of this fight in my head. So that's the whole problem for me with the O'Malley side is I don't know how he's going to react to getting hit by a guy who's going to stand in the pocket, who's going to try and wade through his shots, who's got good head movement, who's got a good, competent guard, and who I think can mix in the low kicks, some takedowns, some clinch work, and make this an uncomfortable fight for Sean. I think Sean's going to need to be on his bike. I think he's going to, need to stick the jab in his face, try and mix in some opportunistic kicks when he's able to set his feet. But I think that Jan is just the more powerful striker. I think he's more dangerous. And I think that O'Malley's going to have to be a lot more conservative. One mistake could cost him a really bad position. And I think people also forget all the damage that has been doled out by Petrosyan from the top position in the UFC. I mean, the Jose Aldo fight was sickening. It's hard to watch that fight back for multiple rounds. He's just pulverizing him, he's hitting a carcass. Just the guy is No Mercy, really apt nickname for this guy. I think that he's going to go out there and show Sugar Sean no mercy. I think he's going to knock him out brutally.
But do you think he has a better nickname than the Ginger with Intent to Injure?
It's it's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
My personal favorite is Dakota Bush, Dakota Harry Bush.
Yeah,
great one.
That's my personal favorite. But real quick, I just wanted to respond to Prince of Mischief. Actually, you're probably right. I probably don't even have access to the finish only on FanDuel because for some reason, when they legalized sports gambling here in New York, they gave us FanDuel, they gave us DraftKings, all those, but we don't get half of the props that everybody else gets. I don't know why.
That's weird. That's
we
really
don't
strange.
get Contender Series. We don't get we just get.
We're too sharp. We're too sharp. They're scared of us.
So a lot of you guys on YouTube and Twitter and stuff that are sharp, winning gamblers, which are very few of the gamblers, are winning ones. A lot of you guys are in the East Coast. It's weird.
But Pat, your turn.
Something about these New York guys,
I think so. Got to move out there, make some more money. Yeah, I like Petrosyan in this fight as well. It's just how close could this fight possibly be? There's a lot of unknowns with O'Malley in this spot. Liam pointed out a lot of them. He, how many times have you seen Sean O'Malley hit clean on the chin? Not very often. It's a very good mover. And what scares me is Petrosyan is the only guy who has wrestling in his back pocket that Sean O'Malley's fought besides Quinones. is the only guy who's like averaged more than like a half of a takedown per 15 minutes that Sean O'Malley's fought. So, but Peter Yan really doesn't go to that often, right? Like Wiz mentioned, he's a very good inside the pocket boxer. Will that be enough? I mean, we've got a guy in Peter Yan who likes to data collect for like the round one. That's the narrative of this fight. I mean, back in my day, guys would data collect like Anderson Silva or Chuck Liddell. It took them 1 minute to data collect, not a whole round. But I like some of the degenerate props in this, like Sean O'Malley, like was it the plus 3.5 points just for him to like secure one round based on significant strikes. That one is at even money, Same with another one that I like that's I think Bet Online has. It's the Peter Yan under 74.5 significant strikes. That's at like even money, minus 110, minus 115. That's curious too, because Yan could get the finish and probably land less than that in the round. It's going to be tough to get in range with Sean O'Malley. He switches stances, feints constantly. I just wonder how close this could be. Obviously, I think the money lines have sort of corrected with a lot of the Sean O'Malley fanboy love has come in on that and softened up that Peter Yan money line, which I like. It's almost playable, but I don't know. I just wonder how close this fight could possibly be. It's going to be an interesting one. I got no investment on this betting wise. I do think Peter Yan just is going to be the more damaging guy. If he can get this fight to the ground and employ that ground and pound that Liam so kindly pointed out, like the Jose Aldo fight, it's going to be a fight ender for sure. So I just don't have a clear play for how this is going to end. Like if it goes to decision, obviously if Sean O'Malley wins, like Wheezy pointed out, it's probably going to be by a decision, sniping from the outside. I got to take Yan here as a prediction, but no money on this one. I want to sit back and learn just how good Sean O'Malley is. This is a huge step up in competition. Finally, he's not protected. We'll see what the kid's made of, So, I got to take Peter Yan just based off of all of the things he's done so far.
Yeah, so Yan has been a heartbreaker for me, man. I've been a Yan truther, huge fan, tremendous fan. I had way too much. He lost me around $1,000 the first time he disqualified himself against Sterling, which was absolutely brutal. He was so dominant. I felt so comfortable. And then he just knees this guy in the head. And I understand Russian. I speak it. And here I heard his corner, and I heard him talking to his corner when he asked them knee. And then one of the Russians goes, yeah. And then boom. It was just brutal. And then I confidently bet him against Sterling. I bet a ton against him the second time. But then I kind of picked up on what Liam was saying, and I was like, this seems a little bit off. So I hedged with the Sterling by decision prop. It was plus 800. I played it at a unit. So I actually ended up being even on that fight because of that. God bless. But I have to think he dominates here. First off, he's already fought someone bigger than him, right? In Sandhagen, who's a very dynamic striker. I looked it up right before. He's the same height as O'Malley, 2-inch reach disadvantage compared to O'Malley, but still long reach. And Peter Yan dealt with him, That was my birthday when they fought. I was sitting there. I had a bunch of people at my house, and I just told them, no one talk to me right now. Literally, no one talk to me. And I was just sitting there watching this fight. I felt like it was way too close. I was so nervous that he was going to lose that fight. But regardless, I think he wins. You guys hit all the points. I think he's a better striker. I think that O'Malley clearly lost that first round against Pedro Munoz. I mean, the judges agreed with me as well. And I know a lot of people felt like he was tuning up in the second. I had a bunch of money on O'Malley there. I don't know. I wasn't convinced. I thought Munoz might win that fight by decision after watching that first round. And I think Peter Yan's just like a way, way, way better version of Pedro Munoz who can also grapple. And he's not like a traditional grappler. Yan's not going to shoot for doubles. He'll be up close, and if he sees that trip, he's going to go for it like he did in that first Sterling fight. Sterling was kind of slipping all over the place. Yan just put out his foot and tripped him down. The one thing I've been looking at as a degenerate, I saw Yan's, what do they call it, the open workouts? And he like tripped the guy at the end, and he went for a Kimura. And I was like, you going for a sub, bro? The sub's at plus 1,800. I feel like that's not wide enough to play it, but I might end up sprinkling it anyways. But yeah, so Wheezy, did you go already?
Yeah, we already talked. Yeah, you started with me on this one.
That was the last one. All right, cool. We'll move on to the first title fight of the night. We've got, where is this? We got Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. Sterling's 21-3-0, 33 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, training out of Sarah BJJ. TJ Dillashaw on the other side is 17-4-0, 36 years old. He's 3 years older, 5'6". He's 1 inch shorter. He's got a 67-inch reach, so he's at a 4-inch reach disadvantage. And do you guys know where he trains? Because I don't.
Elevation Fight Team.
That's what Tapology says, but I could not confirm that.
He's there.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So, Wiz, I think you're starting us off.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the teams here. Both fighters fighting out of great camps. Sarah Jiu-Jitsu with the likes of Volashvili, Ali Quenta, Matt Serra himself for Aljamain Sterling, and then Elevation Fight Team with a plethora of good names, also known for their cardio. So both fighters, you can't really give an edge for training camps because both really good. Personally, I do think Sterling might have a little bit of a easier fight than his last one, even though last one he made it look pretty dominant with the back takes against Petrosyan. I just don't know. Here's the thing. We don't know what kind of fighter we're getting in TJ Dillashaw, because in his last fight against what am I forgetting? Sandhagen. I don't know why I forgot the name. His last fight against Sandhagen, he made that fight really close, and I actually think he won. I had a bet on Sandhagen, full transparency. I think I ran away with one there. It was really close, so either way. But he showed that he still has the cardio. He still has the striking, and his wrestling didn't look half bad either. But here's the thing. I think the length of Sterling in this fight specifically is going to be a little bit tough to deal with. Because Sandhagen, yeah, he can grapple a little bit. He can wrestle. He doesn't really look for it, and he's not as good as Sterling in this position. And I see TJ going for these wild strikes that do leave him open to getting taken down, to getting his back taken. And we all know how good of a grappler Aljamain Sterling is, and he's really opportunistic when it comes to these back takes. So he might be able to backpack him for a round or two here. I would not be surprised if that happens. I personally am not going to lay any money on this fight, not even the main event probably. I think both of these fights are going to be really fun to watch. I don't want to have an emotional side when it comes to money on there. I do think Sterling edges this one out via decision. And yeah, that's my take on this one.
Sorry there, Liam. I took you out for a second. Liam, your turn.
All good, my brother. I'm going to just start off by getting out my personal biases here. I cashed a huge bet on Aljamain last fight out. I took on all the Petrosyan stands in my comments, all the haters. I was armed with memes. One of my only viral tweets ever is, "This is the single greatest photo from a UFC title fight this year," which is Aljo on his back. So number one, New York boys will teach you how to wrestle. If you don't know, now you know. But number two, TJ Dillashaw is a very good fighter, man. And I refreshed myself on the Corey Sandhagen fight before we got on the air. That's a hell of a fighter right there, unfortunately. He's a tough guy to fade right now. Now, the things that I think work to Aljo's favor is that TJ's the one coming in here off of surgery. Aljo's gotten one fight, 2 training camps now under his belt post-op with his neck surgery. I thought he looked career best in his last fight against Petrosyan. Fought very tactically, fought very smart, got to a lot of dominant positions as well. Petrosyan is just extremely tough. A lot of lesser fighters would have quit. He was in really bad spots. And a lot of lesser fighters also would have had hand positioning fall apart eventually. Aljo's just a really, really competent, disciplined, effective hand fighter from the back. That's why he's so effective. That's why he's submitted so many guys, and he'll make you think about a lot of different threats. I function a lot of my grappling game, and I model it after somebody like Aljamain Sterling. I'm looking to fall off the side and hit that choke that he hit on Caio Mizugaki and surprise people at the gym all the time. And the Suluev stretch that he went for as well, which is, it comes from that dominance of the body control, the body triangle. And for me, this fight is extremely tricky because if Aljo's able to get the body triangle, he's going to look like a minus 250 favorite. If he's not able to get the body triangle, he's probably going to look like a pick'em price with somebody like TJ. And that's because we just saw TJ on the feet with Corey was getting out sniped by Corey, and Corey was a little bit faster, a little bit more effective, but he wasn't throwing with as much power. And TJ was walking through the shots. The guy's like a cyborg. I think he's fueled by just like hatred and like, you know, like he runs on negative fumes. The guy's a bad dude. Like just, I've always felt that way about him. He just strikes me as a bad guy. Goddamn, doesn't matter. This is the cage fighting business. It's not a nice guy award. You know, I've actually met Aljamain and Sterling. I've met Aljamain Sterling in person. Seems like a nice enough fellow, right? Like down to earth guy. Seems like a guy who's really good at wrestling and grappling, but doesn't strike you as a dirty, rotten cage fighter like TJ Dillashaw does. And that could be the ultimate difference maker here. I think that this is a really tricky fight to call. You know, my initial inclination was Aljamain Sterling by domination en route to a submission. I got to pump my brakes on that a little bit just based on how clean a lot of the wrestling transitions looked for TJ in the Corey fight. That being said, though, you know, Corey had no hope or takedown attempts. For like, right, he was shooting a shot and like instantly just getting his back taken and like popping back up to the feet. He almost like conceded that back take position like 50 times. Like he just was like, oh, we're back into this series. Let me fight for wrist control. He's about to take my back again. Like he was falling into a negative cycle there. I don't think we'll see that from Aljo. He's not giving up the back to TJ, but I do think TJ would be smart to try and wrestle Aljo. You know, we saw it with Tatsuro Tairo, and this will be, a brief wrap up, but when Carlos Candelario came out there and shot takedowns, he was like, what the fuck? Like I'm the guy who shoots takedowns. I'm supposed to be attacking. So I think it kind of threw him off and led to, a little bit more of a reserved performance for part of that fight. Whereas this most recent fight, he was able to exert his game plan. He was the one pursuing takedowns from Jump Street, and that gave him a lot more confidence. He's able to find the finish. I think that in this fight, if TJ comes out there mixing it up, throwing heavy shots and trying to take down Aljo in round one, that could shake Aljo's confidence. And, he's a guy who's kind of like rebuilt his confidence, but he's lost it before, and he's kind of had those up and down moments. So I think that this is a really intriguing fight. I wanted to be more pro Aljo here. Biases, I'm rooting for Aljo. I don't give a shit. Backpack City, New York boys teach you how to wrestle once again. But just by the numbers in terms of, where I want to put my money, I haven't put any money down on Aljamain Sterling, and that'll tell you something because I'm a big fan.
All right, Pat, how about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great fight. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody, at this weight class, which is a tough one, come back like TJ Dillashaw, two-time champ, come back after 2.5 years and look as good as he did against Corey Sandhagen, whether you think he won the fight or not. Very impressive to come off of a layoff and look that hot right out the gate. So I do have a money line bet on TJ Dillashaw, 1 unit at plus 150 to win 1.5. I just like his striking in this fight. I like the active aggression in this fight that Liam was touching on. Obviously, you've got that scramble ability for Sterling. I mean, obviously, you can find the back, be that human backpack, and burn some rounds that way. I just think the effective damage from TJ Dillashaw is going to win him this fight here. Probably, maybe even get some knockdowns, some like round-defining moments, and that's what I'm banking on for at least 3 out of 5 rounds here. I think his cardio, of course, is elite. I know he got popped for erythropoietin, and they came down on him super hard for that. It's a very hard substance to test for. I mean, it's like undetectable after a few days in a lot of cases. A lot of guys in the sport, they microdose it. They don't blast a whole, a bunch of IUs. They microdose it, and it blends in with your bloodstream just like a normal metabolite does. So when they catch somebody with that, they come down hard, 2-year suspension. And he admitted it like an idiot. So what are you going to do? But I like TJ Dillashaw's efforts here. I think he's still at 36 years old, should be able to have, like I mentioned, those round-defining moments where maybe round 1 goes to Sterling and he can backpack and get that, 4 minutes of back control time, something like that. Just hoping that he doesn't finish TJ Dillashaw in that span of time, and Dillashaw can work his way back into this fight like he's been known to do.
TJ never learned the golden rule, man.
Exactly.
What's that?
Never admit it. They put it in
Deny
my Cheerios.
till you die.
Till
you die.
It was in my supplements. It was in my Flintstone gummies, the erythropoietin.
I knew my man Patrick would know.
Exactly.
But all right, so my turn. Yeah, I played Sterling. I parlayed him with Mokaev relatively early on. I got Sterling at minus 165. Mokaev was minus 645 at the time. So the parlay came down to minus 117 for 1.2 units. I feel much less confident now after looking it over a few more times. I'm pretty torn because I'm having a hard time deciding who's the better grappler, the better wrestler. You look at TJ Dillashaw. I personally think that his wrestling compared to usual did not look up to par in his last fight. 2 of 19 on takedowns. I get Sandhagen's pretty good at keeping on the feet, but look what Sterling did. You know, 2 different fighters, 2 different fights. I understand that, but in the striking, I think that's another thing here that's going to be kind of interesting. I guess TJ's he's cleaner. I guess you could say he's the better striker. But if they're on the feet, who's going to have more of an output? I feel like it's probably going to be Sterling. He showed less of an output against Yan in this last fight, but that's because he was on his back half the time. Before that, he had a pretty good output for a guy getting his ass beat. And then the Pedro Munoz fight, I believe it was like 174 strikes, something like that. The guy's got a good output. He's got the reach advantage here. He's got a decent jab. He mixes in the strikes. You can't say he's an amazing striker, but I think he's very like funky. He mixes it up well, and I do think he's been improving as well. So I feel like he can hang on the feet. And if anyone's going to get that offensive grappling, I'm kind of feeling Sterling. So I'm good with that one parlay. I'm not going to do anything more with this fight. So that's what I'm thinking. How about you, Weezy?
So let's have some fun. Let's play a couple of guessing games, all right? 17 fights for TJ Dillashaw at the UFC level. Can you guys want to Wiz, how many guys you think have taken down TJ Dillashaw at the UFC level? In 17 fights.
I want to say it's only been 3.
Liam?
I missed the question, brother. I was reading.
How many guys do you think have taken down TJ Dillashaw at the UFC level in 17 fights?
I will note that he hasn't fought many wrestlers and grapplers, but I would reckon just Dominic Cruz.
Okay. Patrick?
I think 2. I think Dominic Cruz and one other. That's unexpected, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Dominic Cruz took him down 4 times, and John Lineker took him down once.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the Cruz fight, he was taken down 4 times. You know how many seconds of control time Dominic Cruz got off of those 4 takedowns? 33. Okay. That also is the most amount of seconds that he's been controlled in any of his 17 UFC fights. In 13,019 seconds, this guy has been controlled a grand total of, wait for it, 88 seconds. I mean, he's only been controlled more than 10 seconds in a fight 3 separate times. So if you're thinking that TJ Dillashaw, is going to keep this fight standing and it's going to be a 15-minute kickboxing match, he should probably be priced a lot more expensive than plus 160. Now, and also, if you're pretty confident that Aljamain Sterling's going to just get on this guy's back and, for 2 or 3 rounds, dude, it would be like almost a miracle. But the only reason I'm not betting Dillashaw here is because he's just been so inactive. He had the Cejudo fight in January of 2019, took the rest of 2019 off because of the suspension to all of 2020. Then he comes back and he fights Sandhagen in July of 2021, blows out his knee in the first round of that fight, and still goes all 5. But now he's 36, and he's fought once in the last 3 years, and he's been suspended for performance-enhancing drugs and had a major knee reconstruction. So that's not the archetype of fighter that I'm looking to put money on. But if TJ shows up and he's healthy and he's got that great footwork and that funky movement, and he's just as difficult to take down as he always has been, as he's only yielded 5 takedowns in 17 fights and been controlled for less than 1% of his UFC career. If that TJ shows up, he's going to look a lot better than plus 160. But I can't count on it because I just don't know where he's at this point. There's not enough recent information.
Now, Weezy, question for you. If TJ comes out similar to how he looked against Sandhagen, just looking into the future here, say he does, would you place a bet on him?
Well, he blew out his knee in the first round of that fight, though. So, like, I don't know if that I think he could have been even better in that fight if he was 100% for the whole fight. But we don't know. It's just more missing information.
Fair enough. Yeah, I see that.
Makes me want to stay away even more because it's like I just don't know where this dude is at. I can look at the numbers, but I have to look at the tape, And what tape? Am I going to look at him at 125 pounds against Cejudo in 2019? Before that, I got to go back to, I watched the 2 Garbrandt fights, but that was 2018, 2017. It's a long time ago.
All right. So we're up to the big one. The fight everyone's been talking about. I am very hyped to see where all you guys stand here. I think Weezy, you and me have the same bet here. I saw you on Bet MMA on it, I believe. So we'll talk about it soon. But we've got Charles Oliveira versus Islam Mokaev. Oliveira, the champion, I don't give a fuck, is 33, 8-0. We've got a lot of 33-year-olds. Him, Sterling. I feel like there were 2 more here. 33 years old, 5'10". What was that?
Chook, also 33.
Oh, there you go. 5'10" with the 74-inch reach, and he's training out of Shootbox Diego Lima. We know he's been hyping up that camp recently. They've been getting knockouts, finishes. They've been killing it. Islam Mokaev on the other side, he's 22, 1-0, 31 years old. He's 2 years younger, 5'10". They're the same height. And he's got a 71-inch reach. So he's got a 3-inch reach disadvantage, training obviously with Khabib. And Liam, you're lucky enough to start this one off, brother.
Oh, goodness gracious. I'll tell you guys, I have more research to do for this fight, right? So what you're hearing right now is my preliminary thoughts, but I have been kicking around this matchup like every other sane living human that watches MMA for the last 6 months. So, obviously, in terms of my preconceived biases coming in here, I did look to fade Islam Makhachev once before. I put half a unit on Thiago Moises at plus 750, I think it was. And obviously, it didn't look like a great bet, right? He did end up just getting steamrolled there in the end, but he had a couple moments. He showed a few pieces of resistance. I just felt like overall he wasn't able to keep the pace that Islam was able to keep. And Islam was just a better wrestler than him. So more often than not, they got into a wrestling exchange. Islam came out the other side of it looking a little bit better. I think in this spot, that's not going to be as easy. I don't think that, Charles is as easy to out-wrestle and out-grapple, especially in the current iteration of his career. I think a willingness to go to the ground with certain people isn't necessarily an inability to counter-wrestle. But I do have questions about the strength and physicality here. We got a former featherweight taking on a guy who's pretty big at 155 pounds in Islam Makhachev. Don't know if he's going to be a long-term, lifer at 55. He might eventually bump up to 170. The guy is pretty dang thick. He's very strong. You see the way he holds guys down on the ground. His back goes wide. He kind of flares out. He's got that Beneil Dariush back. If he looked like an athlete, it's like it looks a little bit more musculature. So I do think that he's got a pretty good athleticism to pair along with really, really good skills. Looking back at some previous fights from Charles, it does make me think that there is still a lane for somebody to win. Like right now, he's riding an insane wave of momentum, and that is important in MMA. And that could carry you a lot of big places. Like I've gotten caught with my pants down a couple Charles fights now, trying to ride an underdog against him that didn't come through. Right. And I did that with Justin Gaethje in his last fight. I did that with Michael Chandler in the interim fight. And then I bet on Charles in his other fights. I bet on him inside the distance and on the money line against Dustin Poirier. I bet on him against Tony Ferguson as a plus 140 underdog. So I've seen the skills. I've seen and respected everything from Charles Oliveira. But I do have a feeling like getting dropped in every fight is not sustainable. Eventually that bill is going to come due. Against a guy like Islam, he's not going to give a shit. He's going to go to the ground with Charles. I have very little doubt about that. It's not to say that that's a risk-free proposition. He might end up paying for it, but I just mean I don't think he's going to, say I'm not going on top of this guy if he falls to the ground. I think he's going to get on top of him. And so I think that passing the guard is not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be doable later in the fight. So it really is predicated, in my opinion, on Islam surviving early exchanges, being able to take a couple shots. I don't think he's going to get out of this unscathed. I don't think it's going to be, a risk-free proposition. I think he's going to take some shots to the body. I think he's going to take some knees, some kicks, some elbows. But I think if he's able to get, maybe some clinch control time against the fence, maybe some way to slow down the fight in the first round, ride out some early minutes, then he might be able to work his way into this fight a little bit more. I just think the chaos that Charles brings in the early going overwhelms a lot of guys. Like Justin Gaethje is like the architect of chaotic fights all throughout his career. PFL, all this stuff, World Series of Fighting it was back then. Like the guy has kind of just been a deep waters kind of guy. He was not about swimming in deep waters with Charles. He was like, yeah, I'm looking for a way out of this fight now. And I think that Charles, he's the more dangerous party. So that's the one thing that gives him a lot of credence as an underdog. But I do think that the cardio concerns are real. Like I was pretty sure going into that third round with Kevin Lee that Charles was about to lose to Kevin Lee. I was like, wow, Kevin is coming out here. He's getting on top of him every time he wants to. And he's really starting to like advance a little bit, throw some meaningful ground and pound. And there was a couple of facial expressions, a couple of things from Charles that denote like, oh, I'm really not so comfortable being here. That for me was like, ooh, don't love to see that. Especially Islam sucks the life out of people, the will out of people. Drew Dober was literally just like, fuck this, man. Like eventually he's just like, I give up. And I've done what's called a 20-minute live go. I'll end my thing with this, which is in a college wrestling room where there's just 20 minutes on the clock and you wrestle the whole time. You just keep going. And I was with a coach. He was on my back. And about, 13 minutes in, I just looked at him and I said, bro, I don't know any more wrestling moves. I can't get out. That's it. Like you can either just keep pounding my face in the dirt or like that. I'm just acknowledging to you right now, this is as good as it's going to get. I can't get out. No. I feel like that's the kind of thing that would really frustrate somebody like Charles, who he's, at his best when there's a lot of movement, frenetic pace, scramble. If that gets slowed down to a complete halt and he's just stuck in a couple of bad positions, I think that's the kind of thing that could get a bad reaction out of Charles. But I overall have to say both these guys extremely impressive, would prefer to be on an underdog, wouldn't love to lay chalk against either one of these guys. But I do think there's merit to the claim that if Islam wins this fight, this price will not exist again for some time. Dominant top control grapplers with a name like this, with a resume and a repertoire like this, I do think he's going to get a ton of love and respect from the bookmakers moving forward. So it's kind of a pick your poison spot. Either you buy in with Islam now and it's right, or you take that plunge and find out the hard way. The Adriano Martins fight maybe wasn't such a fluke at all. So I think it's a hell of a main event and one of the hardest fights for me to call of the year.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, this is another one of those money trains I've been riding every single fight for Oliveira, since Kevin Lee all the way to Ferguson. And then we started getting some nice underdog prices, right? We ended up getting Chandler as an underdog. Got to get Dustin Poirier as an underdog for Oliveira. Justin Gaethje a slight favorite, So I've been riding it for a long time, collecting my Charles Oliveira money. And unfortunately, I'm hopping off the money train on him. And obviously at plus money for who I consider, just like you, Mike, to be the actual champion if it wasn't for that sketchy weight miss. Anytime you get this kind of a plus number on a champion, it's like you should really turn your head and consider betting that. And when I did the original tape on Charles Oliveira, I'm like, I can't wait to bet this and really sink my teeth into it. Then I watched the Islam Mokaev. I rewatched all of his fights. I'm like, I don't know. There's so many unknowns. Besides the Adriano Martins knockout, I mean, the guy absorbs like no damage whatsoever, right? And Oliveira on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, all of his fights, save maybe the Justin Gaethje one, he's been in trouble and losing the fight until he wins. And I don't want somebody losing the fight until they win against Islam Mokaev in Abu Dhabi. So I'm just hopping off of this. It's going to be no fun for me. Obviously the fight's fun in itself, but betting-wise as a gambler, no fun not having action on this main event. I even went to look for the overs and unders, and I can't get a good read on that. I want to say fight doesn't start round 4. That's got a big price tag to it as well, and I do see a world where Islam Mokaev can drag this late and just have that smothering top pressure on top. Like he gets on top, obliges Charles on the ground. stay safe to say, like chest pressure, stay safe on top. And, everybody with the Charles Oliveira plus money ticket is like, oh, here it comes. He's going to sweep him, or he's going to grab the neck, or he's going to throw up a triangle. And it just never happens. And meanwhile, Mokhachev's winning minutes. I could see that happening as well. So I'm staying off of this, but I do see Mokaev actually getting this done later down the stretch and wearing out Charles Oliveira. Very, very close fight. Hard to break down. I'm on Mokaev to get the victory. I want to see my illegitimate bastard son Hasbulla touch that gold at the end of the night. But, well, don't laugh, Wheezy. That's my son, all right? I'm trying to reconnect with him. I did take a business trip to Dagestan about 20 years ago. Met a lady of the night.
A business trip to Dagestan.
Yeah, no, I was doing some business out there. I was making Addicted to Combat merch, and I met a lady of the night. She was a short in stature woman, but I had a few flagons of ale. She had a few flagons of ale. One thing became the inevitable, and now I look in the mirror and I see Hasbulla's eyes, and can't help but think,
Did she take you down?
What if?
Oh my!
So I want to see Hasbulla stroking that gold. So give me Mokaev to get the victory. Round 4, Islam Mokaev by ground and pound.
All right, so. Yeah, I mean, at first, this was one of those fights where I was like, all right, I cannot pick a side. I love Charles. I've been an Islam truther. Let's see what the fight doesn't go is at. At the time, it was only open at Betway and FanDuel. And Betway had it at like minus 400 or something. And FanDuel had minus 172. And I almost missed the line because I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why? Am I missing something here? And then I was like, nah, I don't think I'm missing anything. I played 5 units at minus 172. I'm glad I did. That line has come all the way back down to that minus 350 range. And I ended up adding a little bit for Islam. Like you guys hit all the important points already. Liam, Pat, you guys killed it. I think that the wrestling will come in handy here. One thing you could think about is like Hamzat Gilbert Burns, right? Where Hamzat took him down fairly easily, but then wasn't comfortable there. So got back up on the feet and then got hurt like 2 times. Could be something similar going on here, but I just feel like Islam's going to be able to dominate on top. On the feet, I mean, I have to favor Oliveira. He's the one throwing straight strikes. He's the one who's and in the clinch also, like I feel like if we're in the clinch, he's throwing these clinch knees. He's nasty in the clinch, especially lately. But I think Islam's going to get this done. So I ended up adding a little bit. I parlayed him with, I spoke about this earlier. I got a guy on Brave FC today. I parlayed them. That came out to plus 102. So I now technically have just Islam for plus 102 like that for 1 unit. And then I parlayed him with Mokaev inside the distance. That came out to plus 123 for a unit. I like that quite a bit as well. And that's all I'm going to do for this fight. I do think he gets it done. As long as, if it's Oliveira winning, as long as he gets a finish, I won't be heartbroken. But should be a good one. I'm super hyped for it. Wheezy, how about you, man?
Yeah, I got that same 5-unit bet minus 172 on FanDuel for the fight doesn't go to decision. And, and I see this thing happen in one of 2 ways. Either Islam gets his way, and then exactly what Liam talks about, that Islam just breaks people. Because if the fight goes into the 4th round, it meant Islam took you down in the 1st and you didn't get back up. It meant Islam took you down in the 2nd and you didn't get back up. And it meant he took you down in the 3rd and you didn't get back up. And all that time that you spent on the ground, he's beating the shit out of you. And then eventually it just gets to the point where it's like you're looking at your corner and they're telling you you're not tired and, you're going to start dancing more and you're exhausted. You're bleeding out of every orifice, including your ass at this point. And you just say, if this guy takes me down again and I keep fighting and make it to the end of the round, he's just going to take me down again. And you just say to yourself, I got to look for a way out. And that's how fighters get broken. And that's what Islam does to people. This guy, he's never absorbed more than 13 significant strikes in any UFC fight. He's absorbed 93 significant strikes in 12 UFC fights. I mean, that's bonkers. And the reason I love the fight doesn't go to decision so much is how many times have you seen Charles win a fight like in the first 10 seconds of any round? Round 3 against Kevin Lee. He goes in for that shot, guillotine, bam, over. Round 2 against Michael Chandler, straight right down the pipe, right on the chin, fight over. Even in those 15 seconds that Islam doesn't have you taken down yet, Charles is going to be pressuring as well, and I think it's just going to be a crash. And I think that the pace that Charles fights at is just unsustainable for 5 rounds, period. That's why Charles has never been to a 5th round. That's why he's never been to a 4th round. That's why this guy never goes to decision, and 90% of his UFC wins are inside the distance, and 7 of his 8 losses are inside the distance. This guy just doesn't see the scorecards, and he certainly doesn't see them when the scorecards means 1,500 seconds instead of 900 seconds. So, yeah, fight doesn't go. I'm picking Islam to win the fight. I just, I have to see somebody come up with the formula to beat him because, Adriano Martins, that fight was so long ago, man. I need to see somebody beat him, Islam, in order for me to believe that it can happen.
The scenes if Oliveira knocks him out just like Martins did. Can you, in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, they're gonna be like a literal sandstorm. It's gonna be
cover your eyes, Hasbullah. Cover your eyes. You don't want to see this kid.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
he'll be the first one in the cage going after Charles.
You'll be hearing a pin drop in there.
But all right, Wiz, why don't you wrap it up, brother?
Yeah, I mean, you guys broke it down. Only a couple things to add. I mean, Charles is, obviously he's going to be going for it here. The one thing that I feel like Charles doesn't do well is when he does throw with power, he leaves himself exposed to these takedowns. And when you leave yourself exposed to takedowns off of overextended striking, it's a little bit harder to defend because all your weight and momentum is going in one direction. And when someone ducks under and grabs a hold of your legs, you're automatically down for the most part, unless you have superb takedown defense. Now, is Charles going to worry being down there? Probably not. But if he keeps on getting overextended and the same scenario happens over and over again, Islam's going to be able to suck the life out of him with the grappling. I do think Islam wins this fight. I do not have a bet on this fight. I probably won't unless I do some more tape within the next couple of days and it leads me further towards Islam. Another fight where I just want to enjoy it from a fan's perspective. And then me historically, if you check my Bet MMA, I don't really tend to bet on main events as often. I don't have a great record when it comes to main event fights, but it's only been like a couple of them since the beginning of my tracking history, which is February of this year. So I choose not to cap these main events, because usually lines are really close, or just in general, the fighting styles are they match up well against each other in both ways. So it's a little bit harder to cap and harder to win. I'm not saying no one can win on main events, but that's just not my style. So I'm really rooting for Islam here. I'm also rooting for violence. So I like where you guys' heads are at.
Wiz, I was gonna say I'm the same way. I was looking at my stats on Bet MMA the other day, and I didn't realize this, but I do trash on main events. So I'm not as smart as you, so I'm not gonna give up just yet. But I'm on the same page, bro. They are difficult sometimes. But all right, so that's a show. It's been almost 3 hours. Been killing it in here. We've still got 28 live viewers in the chat, though. So thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. Thank you for tuning in.
The viewers are the real champions here for sure.
For sure. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to our panel for all tuning in and coming on with me. I'll give you guys a second to plug your own stuff right now, and then we'll hop off. Everybody can go to bed. Uncle Weezy, why don't you start off? Let everyone know where to find you.
Yeah, man. Twitter at MMA Wheezy. You can look me up on YouTube at Uncle Wheezy, and on the MMA Engine YouTube channel and on Pub Sports Radio. Thanks for having me, Mike. It's been a pleasure breaking down the fights with you guys. This is the best card of the year, and I can't wait to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for this one and really enjoy this.
Wiz.
It's at WizBets on Twitter and on YouTube. have a couple shows going on YouTube with a new one starting tomorrow, highlighting all NFL content and NFL matchups, spreads, whatever you want. I handicap all sports, and I just tend to be decent at handicapping UFC and MMA. So shoot me a follow there, as the rest of the guys too.
All right, Liam.
Hell yeah. Shout out to all these guys. Just wanted to say, folks, find your edge where it is. Happens to be for me, main events are my most profitable betting spot on the card. I actually have a slight, I've been ever so slightly giving back some on these first 6 fights of the night prelims, but my highest ROI, 40% on main events, 57% accuracy on those picks. So this one's perplexing the shit out of me. I hate to tell you guys, but with that being said, you can find all my work as I continue to dig into the information. I go really in depth for my research process, so that's why it takes me till the end of the week to get a lot of this stuff done. But truly appreciate it, guys. Thank you for the support. Find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights. Delphi Sports is where you find my information first, including what I would argue is some of the most in-depth notes in the business. So best of luck to everybody this weekend on all your bets. I know that we're all going to enjoy the shit out of these fights because it's a really good card. So God bless everybody. Be kind to somebody today and enjoy the fights.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? It's been a lot of fun. I mean, if this stream was 9 hours, I'd still be here talking fights. I love MMA. My name is Patrick. I run a YouTube called Addicted to Combat. You can find me on Twitter at CombatAddict1. And I'll have my full betting slate. All of my bets will be out tomorrow morning on my channel. So give me a subscribe. Let's talk some fights.
All right. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Good luck this weekend and have a good one.